Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 4th, 2011 Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting. Happy New Year, everyone. May I have a roll call, please, Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. All 5 selectmen are present, plus Town Administrator Mark Andrews.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda this evening is a meeting with Woodward and Curran regarding the sewer capacity. If you'd come forward, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Identify yourself for the record, please, and welcome.
Hi, I'm Helen Priola Gordon, and I work at Woodward and Curran, and I'm a senior project manager there.
And my name is Leroy Kendricks. I work at Woodward and Curran, and I am a service line leader.
Thank you. Would you like to start your presentation?
Sure. I think I gave some handouts to Mark. I believe he's handed them out to you. And what we wanted to do is just give you a brief overview. We had been hired by the town to do a review of the wastewater treatment plant capacity to determine whether or not there was, in fact, available capacity at the facility. So the first thing we did was really look at some historical information, the anticipated flows that were estimated for the 2002 CWMP, and also looked at the...
If you wouldn't mind, CWMP?
Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. And we also looked at the anticipated loadings that were put together at that time under the same study. Then we worked with Guy and his team to identify what the actual current average day flows are and what the actual current average loadings are at the treatment facility. And then we also did a review of the NPDES permit, the National Pollution Discharge Environmental Permit. Our initial observations on the information show that the anticipated flows that were prepared under the CWMP are higher than the actual flows that have been seen. That's not unusual because during design of engineering facilities, when you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you do design it with a factor of safety involved. And basically what we see is the anticipated average day flow is 1.56 million gallons a day, and we're seeing more in the vicinity of 1.403 million gallons a day. We are also seeing that the loadings, which is BOD, bacterial oxygen demand, and TSS, which is total suspended solids, from the estimates in the CWMP were also higher than the actual flow loading that we're seeing of the connected customers and the septic intake. And another interesting thing, certainly you do have seasonal flows, but it's interesting to note that the flows and the loads don't fluctuate significantly in your community, and so that's actually a good thing in terms of being able to optimize the treatment at your facility. What I did here on the next page is really give you a detailed outline of all the loads that we took, all the flows that we took into consideration, so you can see what we included. We included the baseline flows for the previously sewered areas, all the areas that are currently connected, and then also we took into consideration that you do have committed flows, even though they're not flowing right now, that these are flows that you've made commitments to, and we need to take that piece into consideration. When you're doing a capacity analysis, you look at two things. You look at the capacity available based on flows and the capacity available based on loading, and so we did that. In terms of based on flows, there is about 156,000 gallons a day available on an average basis for within your sewer at the treatment plant. And one of the things I do want to clarify is that all we did look at was the wastewater treatment plant. We did not look at the collection system and individual pump stations. That wasn't part of our charge. The available capacity based on loading is a little more, 216,000 gallons a day, or 0.2 million gallons a day. And let me explain the difference between those two numbers, because that is important for you in terms of managing your capacity. Available capacity can be based on that loading number, which is the larger of the two, the 0.216, if there's a reduction in your infiltration inflow that you have currently in your system, and if you don't increase the septage loads to your treatment facility. So if the septage loads remained equal and you did some upgrades and rehab to your collection system that's leaking or has some infiltration from the groundwater or inflow from illegal connections, then you would be able to get additional flow up to this 0.2. From my recommendation in discussions with Guy and Mark, right now our recommendation is that the available capacity you should be looking at really is the 0.56, because you haven't done that removal on the II, but that certainly you can manage towards that and work towards getting more capacity that way. In that, one of the things you really need to focus on is that rehabilitation of the collection system and a better ability to meter and control pump stations. One of the things we found when we were doing our analysis is that there have been some meters put into the, at the treatment plant. There's a new partial flume, and that is gathering better data than the previous meter that was there that was old and needed to be upgraded. And so we are seeing now that the flows are slightly lower than what we were seeing before, and that's why it does appear that you have this available capacity. And certainly, based on the fact that you have a discharge permit requirement that says that if you exceed 80% of the design flow for 90 days, that you have to put together a plan. The only thing that I wanted to mention in regards to that is we are not sure at this point in time whether or not it's 80% of the 1.56 MGD or 80% of the 2 MGD, and we're trying to get that confirmation because that would give you a little more play there. And in terms of, the reason Leroy's here is to talk a little bit about the fact that in order to really manage the capacity of the treatment plant, really optimization at the treatment plant and the use of technology to do the metering to make sure you're within the appropriate limits is an important thing that you need to look at.
Okay. Before I talk a little bit about technology, I just want to pause and make sure there's not any questions for Helen or any clarifications that need to be made.
Does anyone have any questions for Helen?
Well,
Mrs. Ekstrom?
thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions. At the beginning, when you were saying that they had that we had constructed the plant with a higher, the anticipated flows, had anticipated flows higher than what we're actually having.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that that was because we based it on a Title V of 110 gallons per bedroom.
That's correct.
So
that's correct.
Which never is really.
It's never really, but that's part of the requirement. As I said, it was designed appropriately because that's the standard of care typically done.
Okay.
Right.
And I just also, on the list of the areas and
Mm-hmm.
the areas of flow, I think that the board needs to be aware, and I'm not sure, I see down the bottom that we have Make Peace, the fourth one from the bottom or whatever. That is what we have already committed to Make Peace over the past year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as sewer commissioners, we need to be aware that there is still that unknown number out there. Make Peace has a 300-acre parcel with approximately 65 acres of uplands that it's a business development overlay district agreement with the town that the town authorized sewer for that area. We don't know what they're building. I don't think that they quite know what's in that area. I know that some of it has been relegate, if I understand correctly, maybe that they have like a few acres are going into a solar field or whatever, so that wouldn't need any capacity. But if they do any residential or any commercial stuff up there, and so that is an unknown out there that we do need to take into account.
And may I mention also, Ms. Erickstrom, is that the future committed flow in general, that 375,630 is a question mark for all of those, because
Absolutely.
it's all estimated on kind of Title V and what the
Right.
expectation was. So.
Absolutely, and that's, you know, just to, I guess, want to add to that, that
Mhm.
there's a possibility of that.
Right.
The other thing is that the considerations where it was the reduction in the current infiltration inflow available capacity. Several years ago, and I don't know if you looked at this, and maybe Mr. Gifford can see if I'm remembering correctly. I remember CDM came in and did inflow and infiltration, and I wish I had the graphs here, but on the Buzzards Bay estuary, it showed how the inflow and infiltration had been going down. And for some reason, I want to say that we did smoke testing through all the pipes and everything, and we got it down to, it was like 6,000 gallons a day of you know, infiltration, and essentially they said it wasn't even worth trying to find that 6,000. Well, then that was just before we put on Briarwood, Beaver Dam, and Rose Point. And you can see on the graph a markedly increase in the infiltration since we put on those projects. And I know that you had said illegal connections, you know, where people, you know, that type of thing. You know, I hope we don't have any of those. But
And groundwater.
yeah, well, I would say, and
Infiltrate.
that's my concern, is that could it be groundwater from those two more recent additions that maybe some of the couplings between the
So
pipes?
there's
or
a number of things that can happen. So there's a continuous requirement to rehab facilities. So the old sewer design, as you get rid of infiltration, there will be infiltration that comes elsewhere. So one of the things is, when you are looking at infiltration, at a certain point, you're not going to get any more out than you're going to get. But there's been an increase, and I think that maybe Guy can speak to that. There's been, it seemed to be an increase in that infiltration and inflow, and that it would be a good idea to try to get a handle on where that's coming from. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can do another study. If you had a little more information in terms of metering flows at pump stations, you could isolate the particular area in the sewer system that flow was coming from, and then say, okay, yes, maybe it is that particular area, and so we can isolate that and look a little closer at that, rather than looking at the entire system again.
Okay, yeah, because, well, and that was, I guess my question is that, seeing those ones had just been put on in the past few years, and it was just as recently. I'm looking at Mark for help on my memory, but I think it was it 2006, 2007 that we did those?
I believe so, and the study come back. In fact, I was a little amazed that, like the Swiss Beach area, there wasn't much.
It was like 6,000
inflow.
gallons
It was-
total
it
or
was
whatever.
low.
So that is what, I mean, I have some concerns that if it, I mean, there is a chance that the previous ones, you're absolutely right, that the previous areas could all of a sudden have this infiltration going into it. But I'm kind of concerned with that if we put these 2 or 3 new areas on in that last 3 years, and that's where we're seeing these peaks of infiltration. And I know, I mean, Rose Point, with the underground springs down there and everything, I mean, there were some points where they were essentially working in mud. I mean, you know, because they had such a hard time with the water
construction there,
table
yeah,
and everything.
dewatering.
So, I mean, I think that even without the pump station guides, that might be something that we may want to look at because of that. If it is a couple 100,000 gallons, I don't know, Mark, if you.
Well, the one thing the board should be aware of, Mr. Campina and myself, we're looking at an I&I program. identify some of this and take it out of the system. I mean,
Okay.
Guy has been really upbeat about this and adamant that he's going to do it. So
Excellent. Okay, and I think that was the only thing. And it would be interesting, just a comment that I hope we get that information. I thought it was on the 2 million, because I thought it was the 2 million, which was the 1.6, and then there was something else that was the 40,000.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything definitive in writing, so I didn't want to put it down yet.
Absolutely fine. No, and I'll look forward to finding out exactly if that's what it is.
Mhm.
So.
And we will get back to you in writing on that.
Excellent. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Does anyone else on the board have a question? Mr. Holmes?
Good evening. Thank you very much. I just have a question on page 4.
Mhm.
The first is I see a bunch of footnotes, but I don't see any detail. Is there a page I'm missing?
Yeah, actually, that I took this out of the memo report that we presented to the Guy and Mark. So I can certainly get those footnotes together for you. It talks about things like, let's see, on the Beaver Dam estates, just that particular comment was that the actual flow that was measured, that 15,000, is for both the Beaver Dam and the Briarwood Beach. It was combined. There was no way that we could divide the flow up between those two locations. The town of Bourne additional flow, that particular note speaks to the fact that there has been some additional flow added, but they're still not at the 200,000 flow, which is what you have committed to them in terms of the IMP. The intermunicipal agreement with them is for 200,000 gallons a day.
I'm sorry, 200,000 total?
Yes.
Okay, so then that is based on the 1.56, because it's 17%. Okay, I just,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Holmes.
that's fine. Yes.
And what is the footnote under Makepeace?
And the footnote under Makepeace was that when I was putting this information together, I had been provided with a presentation that was done by CDM here a while back that had Makepeace at the 25,000, but it was my understanding that they were committed to the 50,000. So I have a note saying that, as far as my understanding was, we allocated 50. If it's less, then that's something that you can take into consideration. And 6, allowance, is infiltration, inflow, and other connections for buildable lots that haven't been built on in the existing sewer area.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could get a copy.
I will definitely do that for you,
to
Mr.
the members
Holmes.
of the board.
Yes.
My next question, real quick, is under trailers. What does that mean? Is that every trailer in every park in Wareham? It says trailers under Riverside.
Referring to mobile home.
Everything that's that side of Route 6, things that are already hooked up. You go down by the Cranberry Plaza there, and all the trailer parks down that way, they're actually hooked up and in the system.
Now, we've had some requests, Mr. Campino, to tie in additional parks, but I don't see anything on the committed
They were
or
never committed to.
futuristic.
No, they're never committed to. The mobile home park, Garden Homes North is a consideration.
Right.
It's a big contributor, but they come under DEP because they're greater than 10,000. So I think Mr. Ethier of the Board of Health, and I want to speak for him, but I think one of the things he's doing is trying to speak to DEP to have them react to that, whether they put a treatment plant in themselves, maybe provide funding to bring them into the system if it's available, or whatever they need to do to rectify that. So that trailer park, and then we're also talking about Great Homes. Not Great, I think it's Great Hill. Great Hill, the old elderly park. They existingly have, I believe, it's 66 houses tied in, give or take, because he wasn't too sure of what's actually tied in there. But he'd like to come involved, and he's willing to pay I&I money. And then we're talking about the other ones down by, I believe it's down by the Cumberland Farms in West Wareham. And then if we get that far, then we might as well go to Westwood. So there's all kinds of future things we can consider. We've got some gallons to work with to figure how we're going to use those, best use those. But those trailer parks aren't, not even committed gallons to. There's nothing committed to those trailer parks.
And under Union Pond, is that 16,250, is that at full capacity? Or what's built now?
Not yet. I believe we have 3 buildings that they've got certificate of occupations for occupancy now. And they've got 2 more buildings to go, I believe, to occupy. I think they're 25 units per building. They've got a maintenance building online, so they're not to capacity yet. So,
Right.
and technically, they're starting to fill, but we haven't seen much flow from them. And that should start increasing as because one building they say they've committed to, the second they're filling, and as they fill them, we'll start seeing the flow.
But the 16,250, that's what's already been permitted, or is
Yeah.
that the full project?
To my understanding, that's the project.
That's the full project,
That's what we
right?
committed to them for the
Right.
entire
Correct.
project, and they're gonna use that in segments.
And real quick, Main Street, the new projects on Main Street, Wareham and Walmart, are they included here anywhere?
No, we just mentioned that there's no committed gallons for them. Also, Walmart's definitely not committed gallons.
Main Street?
Main Street is, I'm not,
That's the new apartments on Main Street,
West
We
Wareham,
didn't commit.
815.
815? What?
They're not on
West
sewer.
Wareham?
no, I believe that was a discussion a long time ago, but I think right now they're on, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're on septic.
They're on Title
They're on
V.
septic.
I believe they were, because I think it was consideration, there was no capacity for them at the time, or no definitive capacity, so they went on to septic.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Holmes. Anyone else?
Okay.
Leroy?
Good. One of the things that I head up the electrical and controls group for Woodard and Curran, and one of the things that we have looked at the plant and talked to Guy about is how technology would be able to help drive efficiency up and help drive costs down. And I was telling him and the staff about what we've done at some other places, particularly with pump stations. You guys have a lot of pump stations, and you'll be getting more and more. And some of the things that I talked about was the idea of adding technology so that someone doesn't have to go out to these pump stations every day. Right now, you've got a couple of people that have to visit them 7 days a week. And one thing that technology can do is if you add what they call SCADA, which is supervisory control and data acquisition, and upgrade the controls and instrumentation to these stations, they would not have to be visited on a daily basis. And those labor hours and could be used other places where it makes more sense than just driving around and looking at these stations every day. So one of the things we talked about is as developing a SCADA system plan or assessment such that as new stations come on, they come on in a certain way using the technology so that those stations don't have to be included in the rounds. And then putting together a program so that the other stations can eventually be upgraded so that when the station is gone to, it's gone to specifically for preventive maintenance as opposed to just making daily rounds. So we've done this. We know that DEP will allow that. Right now, they force you to go to them every day. So, and we know that there's a cost benefit to that because even if the project is a capital cost, there might be funding available, but there's definitely a return on investment after some years. And so that's one thing that we talked about. The other thing is actually trying to drive efficiency in the plant. The plant does have an existing SCADA system when it was upgraded. However, there's not been a lot of maintenance, and the upgrades haven't kept up with the technology. So there are some things that can go on inside the plant that will improve the efficiency there also. I'd like to tell you a story about a client that we worked for in Haverhill, Mass. As an example of what technology can do. This particular water plant was having trouble hiring people for third shift, operator, the right grade operator, and there wasn't much being done on third shift. And it caused the operators to have a lot of overtime that they didn't want. It made it very difficult for them to go on vacation. And so Woodard and Curran was hired to come in and take a look and see what it would take to go unattended third shift. So the first step is that we came in and we did an assessment, and we looked at the technology in the plant, we looked at operations, and we looked at their unit processes, the processes of treating the water. And that was about a $25,000 study, but it actually yielded a plan to move them onto unattended. So we told them what it was going to take. We did some engineering to give them improvements in the technology. They had to change out some instruments. They had to upgrade some communications to their remote sites. Our operations group trained their operators on how to deal with a plant that's unattended. The operators were pretty skeptical. They didn't think it would ever work. And there were some unit processes that we had to go from manual to automatic. But basically, we did those improvements, and for 2 months after the improvements were done, we went to what we call hands-off. So there was a third shift person there, but they were hands-off. They couldn't touch anything. In a water plant, if something goes wrong, it needs to be able to shut off automatically and give proper alarming. And so after 2 months of running the plant hands-off, the operators and everyone else was convinced that this technology does work, and as a result, they didn't have to hire a third shift operator, so they saved about $70,000 just on that. Not only did the plant work unattended third shift, but it worked very well first and second shift. And so they restructured their staff such that no one got laid off or anything like that, but everybody's role changed. They were able to do maintenance that they were never able to do before. The water quality was better than it ever was before. They got alarms. They were able to remotely access the system over the internet, so that call-outs, they didn't necessarily have to go in, so it saved overtime. So there's a lot of benefits to having the goal of upgrading efficiency and driving down cost by using technology and that sort of thing. So that's the story that I like to tell, and I think that's where Mark and Guy would like to consider. So it's something that we just wanted to give you a heads up that this is something that we're looking at if you guys are interested, and it's kind of where I think that you want to go. Questions?
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Leroy? Go ahead, Mr. Holmes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did you guys do a case study on that Havel job or a
We
white
did,
paper?
yes.
Would you mind forwarding that to the board, if you wouldn't mind doing that?
Sure, would do that, and give you a reference where you can talk to the.
I'd like to read more about that, or if it's on your website, we can go there and get it. If you could get us a copy of that, I'd appreciate it. And on the unattended system, does that also include metering? So if you put this unattended system on the pump stations, would that also count the flow?
Well, yeah. I mean, on your pump stations, to address what Helen said about metering,
Right.
yes, you can put flow meters on pump stations, and that would go into the SCADA system, usually wireless radio, and it would go into a daily report, and you would be able to monitor those flows in real time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's something that's very common.
Very good.
Along with the automation is automatic reporting and alarming, detailed alarming. Some of the things that you don't have, you do have some reporting now, but our observation is some of that could be upgraded.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Winslow?
Just a quick question regarding SCADA. I used to work in public procurement, and at the time we bid a SCADA system for a water department. It was really expensive 10 years ago, and I can only imagine that the cost has gone up since then.
Well, I wouldn't make that assumption. The cost of the hardware has gone down. Actually, I mean, it's kind of like computers. They have much more capability now, and they're less expensive. What happens is that because they're more capable, people want more, want to do more. So
right, but anyways, so the first thing I thought when you said was, when you brought up SCADA, was, wow, that's a great idea. I can't believe that we're talking about it now and it wasn't done then. But you mentioned available funding? What type of I mean, are there funds out there today that would offset the cost of a system like that?
Well, there's various funding mechanisms, and obviously we're in an economy right now where funding is tightened up considerably.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, a lot of communities use SRF, which is a low interest loans, and that there's very little grant money out there anymore for anything. But you think about low interest loans, and you have to think about the cost of a capital project versus the cost of adding staff, and oftentimes there's a payback, in a relatively short period of time, 5 years or less, depending on what you're talking about. And I think that Guy and Mark have been talking about the need for more staff, and this could mitigate that to a certain extent.
And my final question is this something that you are going to work with them on? I mean, are we going to see some actual numbers, some type of report, some type of something that says, this is what we think the system would cost as we recommend it? This
Yeah.
is what you would need in labor, and are we going to get something like that, or is this just we're thinking about it?
This is a information-only session. The next step, if you would like, would be for us to put a proposal together to put together an assessment and kind of a master plan. So that master plan would basically say, okay, we've looked at all of the pump stations, we've considered the ones that are going to be added, we've looked at the plant, and here's what the overall system should look like. Here's what the costs are, and here is a way that it could be reasonably broken down over some period of time,
Well,
so that you can put it in your capital planning if you like.
and there'd also be an indication on what the cost savings would be too, so you can look at
Right,
that
well, that's
over a yearly, over the life of the equipment, what the cost savings is and how long it would take to actually pay itself off.
right. That's what
That's where you were going.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
Sure.
I understand.
Okay.
Yep.
That's those decisions are up to Guy and Mark. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would say if I could just ask
Mrs.
one
Exton.
question, which I know you're going to say you can't give me an answer. Ballpark. Give me a range, because I'm sure you're well aware of it. This is an enterprise fund, and we have approximately 8,000, I don't want to say users, but equivalency dwelling units. We have about 8,000 of those that will carry this entire burden themselves. So I understand about the cost-benefit analysis, and in 5 years it'll be paying for itself, but there are some people that may not be able to afford that short-term in the 5 years.
Sure.
And I know with the SRF we're looking at a 2% loan on it, so we'd have to factor that in. So I don't expect you to say, well, it's $10.2 million, but I mean, just to give me ballpark within $5 million. No, within. And I won't hold you to it.
Oh, yeah.
I will. I will.
Or you can just tell me how much. What does it say? If we're putting in new pumps, the new pump stations, how much would, compared to a regular pump station, with that additional mechanism
The SCADA
of
part?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's interesting. When you put in a new pump station, it doesn't cost anything extra. It's not something that's extra. A pump station should be designed with the technology in it now.
Okay.
So what generally happens that if the pump station supplier isn't told to design it with a programmable controller, which is an industrial computer, then they'll design it with the cheapest thing that they can do, which would be electromechanical relays, which is not that much cheaper.
Right.
But if it saves 2 nickels to them, what do they care? They're handing it over. But the real question is ballpark, and the only thing I'll commit to saying at this point that it's not $2 million. It's less than $2 million. You've got 25 or 30. How many pump stations currently?
39.
39 pump stations currently, and you're going to be adding 10 to a dozen
10.
more.
Yeah,
Mhm.
10 to 7 immediately, and then eventually.
Right, and your plant already has SCADA, so it just really needs some upgrades
Up-
there.
Okay.
You know, I'm at 2 million. I'm comfortable. Anything below that, before I actually do an assessment, I just wouldn't be comfortable. But we're not talking 5 million,
Okay.
and I think the assessment will outline a reasonable approach and consider all of it, including the long-term operating costs, and if you do nothing.
Excellent. And I guess that we could probably even, while it is an enterprise fund, that there are costs of, say, for future employees of retirement benefits that would be carried by the town that would not have to be carried by the town if we did not have to hire them. So therefore, maybe it could be part of a combined capital improvement. So just to keep that in the back of our mind.
That's an excellent point, because a lot of people don't think about the long-term
Long-term.
implications. I will say this, however. I've been doing this SCADA business and electrical for a long time, 35 years, and in very, very, very few cases have I seen that it eliminates jobs or eliminates employees that exist. What it does is it really enhances what you have, and when you're in a growth mode like you are, it keeps you from having to
add
grow
more.
staff.
That's right. I'm sorry.
But
And that's what I meant.
what it does is it makes the staff that you have more efficient. And I think you should look at that more than anything else. You are in a growth mode. You've got all these stations coming on. You've got a situation where you're trying to add capacity and that sort of thing. And that's where the technology really helps.
Right.
It's not a job eliminator, so to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews, did you want to say something?
Madam Chair, through you, I just wanted to say this falls in line with the concept behind the 2012 budget, which is thinking strategically. I think it's time that we have an enterprise fund. It should be operating sufficiently. We should have the technology and be using the equipment that's there to the highest degree possible. And I think you hit it right on the head, Member Ekstrom. When you forward think out and plan out the retirement costs, the health costs for additional employees, the gasoline, the vehicles that go into the whole equation, it's a good discussion to have at this point in time, because I think the assessment is something that we need going forward. And I intend to work with my board and would encourage fine individuals and engineers that have come up with, I think, once again, another model for us to think about. And just to have that discussion, I think, is important. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Andrews. I think that it would be incumbent upon the board to give the guidance and direction as the sewer commissioners to Mr. Andrews and Mr. Campaign and Mr. Gifford to get the information for us, to authorize them to go ahead and do a capital plan that would address the cost-benefit analysis and the return on investment and the types of information that we would need to be able to add it to our capital plan in a way that would make sense.
So
And
moved.
is there a second? That was
Jane made the statement, and
I made a
and I
statement,
moved it.
I made the statement that it would be incumbent upon us to give that guidance and policy and direction, that we would get a capital plan that would address the cost-benefit analysis and different funding mechanisms, and Mrs. Ekstrom made a motion out of my statement. So is there a second?
To move forward with the
Yes.
with the
Yes.
assessment.
Yes.
I'll
With the
second that.
assessment, right.
Thank
I
you.
second that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
Any further discussion?
Well, I think, Madam Chair, I think that everything the gentleman has just said is absolutely right on. You need to have somebody come in, look at the operation, look at the plan, give us a plan. And I think that you're spending $25,000, if that's what it turns. It could be 20, right? Or it could be 19. You're gonna work that for us, right? Yeah, you said it was ballpark.
I said I wouldn't hold him to it.
You wouldn't hold him to it. I might hold him to something less than that.
What it'll be is a fair value.
Right, and I think that's everything you said is absolutely right on. I say that every day to hospitals, and it's absolutely important to get that done. And before we move on, I just want to thank you for the work that you've done on this document. It's been a long time that we've been asking for these figures, and we're finally getting the answers that we so deserve and need. to move forward as a town. So I think that this is very good, very good. The
Ma-
sooner the better.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I really like the idea of the analysis, but my concern is that this is something that Guy and Mark should probably work out and then bring to us what they want, how they want it done.
We're the sewer commissioners.
Well-
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, what I mean is that we heard a great presentation, but I mean, guys at the plant every single day. I mean, is this what he thinks is the direction we should be going in? Does he want something above and beyond this, a little bit less than this? What's his recommendation to us on this?
I've met with Woodland Curran, Mr. Andrews, and Mr. Gifford right along, and I'm all for it. It's a great idea. It makes all the sense in the world. We need it. Just the cost that we're spending overtime to get to answer skater issues, it's incredible, and this is going to make our life easier. It gives us time to focus on other areas that we've neglected for so long. So, my goodness, I'm buying this 100%, and it can't happen fast enough as I'm concerned.
Okay.
It's a beautiful idea.
Oh, I love the idea. I want to make sure that we're going in the direction that.
One thing I do want to say, but they've been gracious to us. They're responsive. They're professional. They've done a great job, and they've let us. I mean, we push them, and they've been gracious. And sometimes I've been a pure pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been very gracious. So, absolutely, they're a great company to work with. I'm excited about it. Mr. Andrews has been in the middle, keeping us separate and separated, and it's been a great time. So yes, I'm for it 100%. We can work with this company, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and I'm looking forward to the relationship. It's a long term, and I believe it's going to be a great one for the town. And the ratepayers are going to benefit because they're going to save money in the long term, and that's important. Let me throw this out at you real quick, and I'll leave. We put the chemicals out to bid. It comes back, we're going to save approximately $50,000. I want you to know that.
Thank you, Mr. Campina. We're in the middle of a vote here, so
I'm sorry.
we're in the middle of...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of a vote. I appreciate your clarification. My understanding and assumption that you've just clarified is that you all are ready and prepared to go forward with this and are recommending this to the sewer commissioners. We've got a motion and a second on the floor to move forward with this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to improving our technology and efficiency.
I have it written down. You'll have it tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you,
Good
Mr.
night.
Campina.
Thank you,
Mr. Gifford.
Gordon, thank you.
Thank you, Woodward and Curran.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys.
I believe we have one announcement. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one announcement. The American Red Cross will be holding a blood drive at the First Congregational Church in Wareham, 11 Gibbs Avenue, on Tuesday, January 18th, 2011, from 1:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. All presenting donors will receive a coupon for a pound of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. If you want to contact the person, it's Lisa Godliski. Contact number is 781-751-4229, and that's Tuesday, January 18th, at the Gibbs Avenue First Congregational Church.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Welcome, Madam Chair.
And if you like coffee, there you go. Do we have anybody who would like to address the board under citizens' participation this evening? No one? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move right along. I don't believe we have any bills.
No, we don't, Madam Chair.
And no licenses and permits this evening. We'll go to the town administrator's report. Mr. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, to the members of the audience and listening audience. If I can ask Gary Buckminster and Jamie to come forward. We have on December 22nd, I met with Harbour Master Buckminster to discuss the applicants for the position of Assistant Harbour Master. As a result of that meeting and a number of interviews, I'm proud to put before this body tonight the recommendation and appointment that I would make for Jamie McIntyre, who is before us, and he has 6 years of experience in the Harbor Master's office, has worked with huge pieces of equipment, and just wanted to make that recommendation to the board, McIntosh, pardon me. And previous to that, there was a subcommittee that was convened, including member Holmes, with respect to the number of applicants that were interviewed. Mr. McIntosh, through the Harbor Master, if you could introduce him, please.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to sit before you tonight to introduce to you Jamie McIntosh, the Assistant Harbor Master for the town. I knew Jamie growing up. He was a 12-year-old kid running around the pier, chasing his brother around. Now I feel old over that. But anyhow, I over the time I was able to see Jamie, he was always involved with the waterfront. His dad used to make him go down to the dock, help tie boats up. He'd be pumping out boats that during rainstorms. He'd always be helping out people down the docks. In 2004, Jamie was hired as a seasonal assistant for the department. I had the opportunity to work with him, oversee Jamie's operations. Jamie's proven himself. He's a dedicated individual. He made it a point to earn the respect of the people that are down on the waterfronts, as well as the community. And I think his drive, in his experience, we're really bringing a grade A person onto our team to make sure we're going in the right direction. It was a key point of mine to be able to look at the areas in our town, our waterfronts, our natural resources, public access, and see what we needed to address and how we needed to push forward to make sure that we're offering the best stuff for the people in this town. And I think Jamie fits into this perfectly. He's got skills of contracting. He's got mechanical experience. He's got his 100-ton captain's license. He's a first mate on the high-speed ferry for Highline cruises. And I'm very pleased to be sitting next to him tonight to introduce him to you. And I'd like to thank everybody that was involved with the hiring process, and Mr. Andrews for sitting through and looking through all the applicants. I mean, we had some great applicants, we had some great interviewees, and we made a good selection. So I'd like to thank you all.
Does anyone have any questions for Jamie or Gary or Mr. Andrews relative to this appointment?
Madam Chair, I just want to say welcome aboard. I agree. I think this is a great choice, and I'm happy to see you sitting here.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Mr. Holmes.
I did want to say congratulations, Jamie. Madam Chair, I sat on the interview committee, and I really want to give a kudo to Mr. Bunkminster. The 3 individuals or 4 individuals we had interviewed that day, they were all outstanding caliber individuals. Where he found them, I don't know, but they were excellent. His questions were tough. He went into every areas that I didn't know the Harbor Master did. And Jamie, I'm not going to ask you how much of a square footage an oyster needs to live. You probably have the answer, right? You're going to show me where those oysters are, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
But no, I really want to say that for Gary's first interview process in hiring as one of our new department heads, and I want to give him kudos as well, because he did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
The participants were well calibered. The questions were right on, very detailed in every area of the job. And Jamie, I just want to say, nice to see you again and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for being with us this
Thank you.
evening, and thank you for keeping our waterways safe.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Good job.
Have a good night.
Big time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Good work. Madam Chair, on the personnel update, if I could continue on the
Please.
Director of Assessment, under the provisions of the Charter, I am happy to announce I have selected Sheila Scaduto as full-time Director of Assessment. Ms. Scaduto has been working in the capacity of Acting Director since Mr. Gonzalez, Rich Gonzalez, moved on to his hometown as an assessor. I'm especially impressed with Sheila's work with respect to fiscal and financial management, and in assisting the town moving forward in setting on time and in following the proper procedures for the fiscal 2011 tax rate. And I'll be working with the Assessor's Office, which I have sent a notification of this election, and I'll be working with them under the Charter, Section 3-2C, with respect to their input and insight. And I just wanted Sheila to come forward. We've had her here before under a number of circumstances, and I'm proud to say that she's my selection for Director of Assessment for the town.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews, and congratulations, Sheila.
Thank you very much.
Your reputation does precede you, and I think that you've been doing a fine job, and you'll continue to do a fine job for the town, so thank you.
Thank
Does
you
anyone
very
have
much.
any questions or comments for
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Caduto?
I just, I actually have a question for Mr. Andrews, because I saw the letter and the notification to the Director of Assessment, but nobody from the Board of Assessors was involved in the hiring process. Was there a search committee, a posting, because there's a policy that the board has about posting on the MMA website, and I know the charter says that the assessors have 15 days, but when I saw that letter today, I got confused. Were they involved or not involved? And
through you, Madam Chair, I've asked for their involvement. I asked specifically for their input and insight. I'm happy to meet with them. If they call a special meeting, I know there's one coming up, to get any feedback that we can that I can garner. But at this particular time, I think we have the best candidate in front of us, making the appointment for an individual who has served in the acting capacity for approximately 6 months since Mr. Gonzalez has left us. And I believe I have this responsibility under the Charter. I did serve notice to the Board of Assessors that I am interested in their input. Happy to meet with them. I know the Chairman was in the office the other day, and I'm sure he can drop by and give me his perspective, or if the members have written comments that they'd like to make to forward to us. There's a 15-day provision under the Charter, under Section 3-2C, that I'm happy to once again work through and work with them to get any additional information that they would like to submit to me.
Madam Chair, first of all, I just want to be really clear. This isn't a conversation about whether you're the best candidate or not. This is a conversation about the process. Was the board aware prior to the letter that went out today, when you notified them, that you were looking to promote from within, and was any input received by them prior? See, my concern here is not only for the process, but for the woman sitting before us, and that is that, you know, if there was a situation where the Board of Assessors were to not ratify her appointment, that puts everybody in a rather uncomfortable position, and I don't think that that's fair to her.
Actually, the note went down prior to this meeting and prior to discussion about, and the notification went forward. So I'm looking forward to their input under the provisions of the Charter, and I believe I have the responsibility to move this forward. And I think the process in and of itself, as we brought forward a number of issues that Sheila's worked on, is part and parcel of the process that she has, once again, take the person out of the equation. But as an acting Director of Assessment, she has excelled to the highest degree that I have set forward as Town Administrator. And looking at that, I've asked her to come forward and nominations put forward, and I've invited the assessors to give me input and their insight, whether in writing or if they want to meet and talk about it, that's fine.
Okay, so I guess perhaps I'm not being very clear. This is one of those unique appointments that not only does this board have a right to reject, which we don't ever do, but where there's another board involved. And I guess I would have preferred to hear that somebody from the Board of Assessors had been involved in this process from the beginning. But what I'm hearing is that they received notice around the same time we did, which was roughly Friday. And now, after the fact, we're soliciting their input. But there's a policy that the board wrote just 2 years ago, the former board wrote 2 years ago, and this board has a right to reject, this other board has a right to reject the appointment. So I guess I'm just expressing that in a situation like this, it would seem to me that it would be better off to go through this process. Whether you have the right under the charter or not isn't the issue. The issue is that for all the work and effort that you've put into this, if that board turns around and says, we don't want, Mrs. Smith in this position, then it's for naught. So I wish that they had been involved in this process much sooner.
Well, Madam Chair, just let me be clear. It's not about the right under the charter. I believe the notice that I've served to them gives them plenty of time to give me feedback, because she has been in an acting capacity, and I have noticed on a day-to-day basis the hard work that she has put in. That process has started, so I'm welcoming that input under the charter, and I'm also welcoming any input from my Board of Selectmen.
If I may,
Please.
thank you, Madam Chair, and please excuse me for not speaking to you, but about you. Have you received any complaints from the Board of Assessors or employees in the office with Sheila's performance over the last 6 months?
I have not, through you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so,
As a matter of fact,
and I'm not saying that that would be the sole determining factor. I do understand because, not just you, the article that Selectman Winslow is referring to, I wrote that policy, and that policy apparently, and I'm saying, not just you, over the past 2 years, it has not been worth the paper that it was written on, that it has not been followed, and that when it has been brought up in the past, again, not to you, it was put out with, oh, well, we're doing it this way, or we didn't have to do this, or whatever. So I do understand where you're going with that. I do, I'll tell you, I have less of an issue with this one than I have with the previous one. I didn't bring it up because it had nothing to do with Mr. McIntosh, but I have a real problem that today I got the notice in my email dated the 4th, which if we had any objection to that appointment, we had to have it to you by yesterday. Now that was not you, that was an email, that was via email. Mr. McIntosh's appointment, the email that I received that announced it and thanked it was dated today.
So you have 15 days from today?
No. It said 15 days from the date of the letter, which was December 22nd.
Oh, I thought you said it was dated today.
The email was dated today.
The email was dated today. I got you.
And so therefore, and as I said, it doesn't, I know nothing about him. I'm trusting Mr. Buckminster because I think he's done a phenomenal job. And and with this one here, I think that there are issues, and perhaps as not to cause an issue with Sheila, because I think Sheila's fantastic, and I don't know if you realize that setting the tax rate, that was really just your test. But so I'm pleased with this, and I hope that the Board of Assessors will not reject this appointment, as I don't have any intention of voicing any concerns to reject it. I would be very excited to have Sheila as our assessor. However, I do think that those policies do need to be pulled out, do need to be brushed off, and do need to be addressed so that moving forward, everyone is on the same page, and that although, as Ms. Winslow said, that these do adhere to the charter, as everyone is well aware, bylaws can be more restrictive to the charter, and policies can be even more restrictive to that. And I think that was what we were going for, because there were many of these, no appointments or no interviews or whatever. So I do share Ms. Winslow's concerns, and I do agree that although it's not the person, because I'm very excited about this one, but I think that going forward we do need to look at that so that everyone's on the same page, and even in the office, so that when you write a letter out, if we're going to be notified, we get notified the day of that letter, so that we do have the time, to meet to discuss if there was something that ever arose. And just one more thing is that because in the past, I believe 3 of us were on the board where we did in fact reject an appointment. So it can be done, and it has been done in the recent history. So.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I just want to, close my comments with, first of all, I'm really trying to not make this about you, Sheila, because
That's fine.
I don't have an issue with your particular appointment. But we just saw before you the harbor master who participated in the hiring of an assistant harbor master and all the other appointments that have come before us. We have the people who are going to work with them. And I just really wish, and for the future, I want to ensure that the people who have the power of veto, if you will, are involved in the process from the get-go, because I don't think it would be fair to this, wonderful woman if that board were to reject her appointment after she's worked hard and been through this and been handed a letter. And I think that could have been avoided if, from the very beginning, there had been some involvement.
If I may, because on here I will disagree. Although I'm in agreement with her on the policy, I do disagree with this because I really think, could Mr. Andrews have asked one of them to come forward? I don't think, whether it's Mr. Buckminster or whoever it is, that really is, I don't want to say a courtesy, but there have been, when we had the town planner, we had asked the chairman of the planning board, we didn't get him, we finally got, the secretary to come in for a couple of the interviews or whatever, but these appointments, they're really Mr. Andrews, solely his decision. And so if he says, hey Gary, have time, can you do this? Gary's a full-time paid employee. The members of the Board of Assessors are part-time unpaid employees, employees. So to expect them to have to come in and sit for to do interviews or to do something like that, I think that it's his authority, not theirs.
Okay, rather than continue to go back and forth, if you don't mind, we do have more business to conduct this evening. I think the point has been duly made. The Board of Assessors will have the opportunity to weigh in. I have all good faith that there will probably be no problems with them and Ms. Scaduto's appointment. The point has been made that in the future perhaps the process could be a little bit done further in advance, and we'll wait to see if in fact the Board of Assessors rejects the appointment, which, as I said, is probably highly unlikely. And I think we as a board have made it fairly clear that we're very happy with your performance, as Mr. Andrews is, and hopefully it will just continue down the road in a positive fashion, and you will be our assessor.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Sheila.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Stephen Curry, Chairman of the Board. I found out about this appointment from Sheila McCoy on last Friday, saying that they were discussing appointing her. When will Mr. Andrews inform us of this thing? We haven't been notified as of today at all.
Madam Chair, if Mr. Chairman, if you check your mail, you got a note today from me. Once again, under the provision of the charter that I've cited. And if I could, Madam Chair, just real quick.
Certainly.
I welcome.
Madam Chair, can we time out here for 1 second, please? There's a young lady sitting here in a very awkward position.
I agree.
That's okay. Let's congratulate you on your selection, and then let her go back to her seat, and then if you want to discuss procedures and policies, that's fine. But this is very awkward for this young lady to be sitting here. I feel very awkward for you. So if that's okay with you, Madam Chair, maybe we can do that.
That's perfectly fine with me, Mr. Holmes. That's exactly where I was trying to go. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
very
Mrs.
much.
Scaduto.
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I can continue with respect to item B, signed bylaw task force. Working with Chairwoman Donahue, we've put together a signed bylaw task force to address issues that will be coming up with respect to the reconstruction of Route 6 and 28.
I think they wanted you to finish your
Oh, I'm sorry.
topic on the assessor's process that the young lady is that.
Oh, I apologize.
If I thought that Mr. Andrews had responded to Mr. Curry with the answer that the information had been sent to him today. I didn't think there was any further question, and that is why Mr. Andrews was continuing. Okay? Thank you. Continue, Mr. Andrews,
Thank
please.
you. On signed bylaw task force, I think it's important that we form a task force that would look at signage and the upcoming reconstruction of Route 6 and 28. And I would appoint this task force to include the town planner, John Charbonneau, Mr. Ken Fiera of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Miles Burke, Director of Inspectional Services, Peter Sanborn, Director of CEDAR, Chief Stanley from the Police Department perspective or one of his designees, a member of the Planning Board, and myself, and I'm looking forward to forming this task force to move forward on a number of locations along the reconstruction route. If you review the preliminary drawings, there'll be a need to realign and come into compliance with new signage code, and so I would like to afford the businesses and all of the entities along that route to be able to work with us on how to relocate some of the signs and to come in compliance as those projects go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. As you know, this is an issue that's long been a little bit of a hot spot for myself and a number of members of the community. The sign bylaw that's currently in existence is not able to be enforced on a more regular basis. There's a lot of issues about grandfathering the old signs, and I do have that listing of establishments that are probably not currently in compliance. And it's all about the ambiance of the villages in Wareham and how we can improve our atmosphere, if you will. And we're certainly looking forward to hopefully including the town business people in this process, because I would think that they would also agree that it's in their best interest to make the town as attractive as possible with proper signage. So I thank you for getting this rolling, and I would strongly recommend that we get one or two of the business folks involved in this task force as well.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I was just wondering, would we need to have any discussions with Mass Highway on this? Because Route 6 and 28, it is a state road. And I don't know if I know that we're doing a there's going to be some reconfiguring, but I don't know if they would need to be involved with any of that stuff.
It's an excellent point, and they've been working with the planning department, and we'll have their participation as well as that business component, Madam Chair.
And one more thing, seeing we're talking about the downtown, I brought it up to the Director of Inspectional Services. It's been brought up to me probably 25 to 50 times by residents. There is one particular business on Main Street that is putting one of the folding things out
Sandwich boards.
on one of the sandwich boards out on the street.
Okay.
I have asked for it to be removed. I believe that the business has been asked several times to remove it, and I believe that seeing it is on public property, that if maintenance or inspectional services, if it's not removed and kept in where it's supposed to be and removed at the end of the day and brought out into
It's not even supposed to be on the sidewalk to begin with.
That's
There
true. It's not even supposed
no
to be.
sandwich boards are allowed by the current sign bylaw.
But if it can be done, then I would recommend that you have the Director of Inspectional Services or Municipal Maintenance pick it up before a member of this Board of Selectmen picks it up.
Okay, Madam Chair. I know
Thank
they've
you.
been down there, and we'll get back down there again to make it clear.
Right. And I, just for the business folk in town, I do understand that you want to advertise your businesses, but we do have bylaws for a reason, and signage, again, is to make our community attractive. And in some cases, there might be 3 or 4 sandwich board signs on the same section of sidewalk, and people have to try to get around them, and they're not attractive by any stretch of the imagination. So please take that under advisement and try to stay in conformance with the bylaws. Thank you.
Got it, Madam Chair.
I would say I believe that the fines for that, isn't there? It's either $50 a day. Could be as much as $300 a day. That might get their attention. But we can check that out. But it is a finable offense.
I've duly noted, Madam Chair. Item D, if I could. We have been invited to participate in the Homeland Security Integrated Emergency Management course, which is a simulation of a Homeland Security matter that would occur perhaps at one of our facilities, including hospital facilities. At no cost to the town, the following individuals, I am recommended that they attend this seminar, including Mr. Bob Ethier from the Health Department, Gary Buckminster, Harbor Master, Dave Evans from the EMS Department, Glenn Gifford and John Walchuk from the Wareham Police Department, Mr. Jerry Oswald and Raymond Goodwin from the Onset Fire Department. And the course places public officials in a real-life emergency personnel situation where they have to react and do immediate assessment, be able to respond, and it's a structured learning environment, and they'll be attending that seminar, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number D, Madam Chair, through you, downtown development. I just wanted to, and I know Member Holmes was very interested in this. In your packet, you have a notation with respect to a section of the downtown at 355 Main Street with respect to an ongoing effort to get these properties down, to get them in compliance and conformance with our regulations. Attaches a report and a letter to one of the property owners who's working with us cooperatively. I think that's the best way to go, particularly when you're working with the business community. I expect that the ongoing commitment from Mr. Burke and the rest of our inspectional services team will be moving this forward, and I will notify you when the demolition of the site will take place. Item E, if I could, Guy.
Madam Chair, just briefly through you to Mr. Andrews. The attached policy, Mr. Andrews, is what governs the abandoned building. I got this policy. I haven't had a chance to read it.
Yes.
That next one, Article 13.
Yes.
That governs all of those parcels.
This
that we've been talking about.
Yes, this particular right.
Is this posted somewhere? Is this online somewhere?
If it isn't, I'll get it up. I believe it is up on the website.
It is particular. It is. Is it on the Wareham? Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Member Holmes. You are welcome. The last item on the report, Mr. Campina did attend at my direction a conference held on December 9th at the Holiday Inn in Taunton. The conference was with respect to mutual aid. If there is some type of natural disaster that happens, who has the database for resources in terms of mutual aid? Who do you call? How do you get additional assistance from other cities and towns? And I asked Mr. Campina to attend this conference and to fully brief me on program options, which we're looking at very seriously. And I've included in your packet the materials that were disseminated at that conference. On the status of ongoing projects, on the Financial Management Action Plan, we are eclipsing the 90%, over 91, 92% with respect to the Financial Management Action Plan. Just to harken back, pursuant to the Department of Revenue's report, 42 items. We're well up into the 30s with regard to solving a lot of those items that were put before us, as well as on our independent management audit report from Powers and Sullivan. I just wanted to note that Jim Powers is the chairwoman of the Finance Committee here. Mr. Powers is joining us tomorrow night for an update to the Finance Committee, not only on that, but on the standardized reporting system, which I believe everybody received via email today. So that part of the action plan is moving forward. I don't have anything to report on the Cranberry Commons Task Force. I am continuing to work with our chief on a contract that will hopefully be able to come forward and give you more information in a short period of time. We also have on deck the Model Regional Recreation Program, which once again is modeled after the town of Dartmouth, and I've been working with David Cressman, the town administrator from Dartmouth, on how we can use, how we can both share in regional recreation for the spring and summer months. And you did receive, I believe, on the last item on the status report, an update on virtual town hall, which Mr. Matt Underhill provided you, I believe, 2 weeks ago. So that brings us to the end of the status report. I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Winslow.
I have one question and I have one comment. My first question is the ongoing negotiations with the chief of police. Have we called for a civil service test?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so we're...
Yes.
Okay, good. And secondly, I just wanted to say to you and Mr. Gifford, who left, that, and everybody in the municipal maintenance department, they did a fabulous job out in East Wareham. Glen Charlie Road is often known to be, just a sheet of ice coming down in the storms. We saw, and I got lots of calls from lots of people, and normally they're not happy calls, but they did an awesome job. We saw lots of trucks, lots of sanders, and everybody got out safe. And I was not awakened in the middle of the night, not once, during a 2-day storm by the sound of somebody smashing into the transformer as they came down the hill. So kudos to you, Mr. Gifford, and the entire municipal maintenance department for doing a really excellent job. I know they worked hard. There were a lot of hours involved.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you, Member Winslow. And I also I have put letters on file, just as a small note, in Frank Bergamasco's file and Mr. Glenn Barrow's file with respect to the hard work, because they were on site with me that Sunday evening and into that Monday, which was I think I used the word devilish storm, because you couldn't quite figure it out. But thank you very much, Member Winslow.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. I plan to mention Mr. Bergamasco and Mr. Barrows as well, since they were honchoing the entire evolution, and I think that I can say that for the first time, I have not, in 4 years, I had not received any phone calls with complaints about the storm. Everybody was very pleased with the removal, and I was out and about myself on Monday, early in the afternoon, and was in constant contact with Mr. Andrews over the course of the storm. He came into town and stayed here overnight and was out with the crews, and really made a superb effort to make sure that he knew what was going on and kept the chair and the board informed as to what was happening during the storm.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mrs. Ekstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on your ongoing thing, and we'll get back to the storm stuff. No. No, just a question on that.
I feel there's a storm brewing here.
The 91, 92%.
Yes.
The remaining 4 things, whatever, are those, I don't have it with me, but aren't those more of a longer term thing? Those aren't things that we're going to be looking to have settled anytime soon, right? I mean...
Well, there are systems approaches which we have been pushing our MIS department with respect to services provided through VADAR to give us the most quality-oriented results and the types of reporting. So that's why I mentioned the Finance Committee and this board, Member Holmes, pushing with regards to a dashboard moving forward to get as much information out in the most appropriate way.
Okay.
So there are some systematic, but I will give, I'd like to, if I could just real quick, I'd like to be able to give this board a final update, and then I'm heading to Boston. I'd like the board to come with me to meet with the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Revenue. Let's lay out our plan, and maybe we can put that plan in place so that other cities and towns can look at it in, less than 6 months, I think. We handled over 42 items. And it is imperative, just to make one notation, the independent audit findings need to be resolved or corrected within the 1-year period. So, we're working to get that done by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, no, because I've given you enough kudos, I think, now. But I've given you enough for the time being with the, at the 91, 92%. But someone had mentioned to me the last time you had mentioned that, they said, wasn't that the same amount? But I just wanted people to understand that those last few items are not, we're going to change the color of the paper from white to yellow so people know. These are systematic,
yes.
System-wide changes that have to be made so that they, when people hear that 91, 92%, but it's ongoing, is we are still working on those last few, but those last few are not going to happen overnight. So just so that the people out there are aware of it, that they're still going, but they're not something that should just be able to be flipped over.
No, you are correct. You are correct, because they are longer-term effect, if you will, but the effort that is put into it and the closing down, I want to close the process down sometime in January so that we can say that we are at this particular point and that the systems that we're working on have been improved, and anything else that we need to do over a period of time will be done, making that commitment going forward.
Excellent. No, I appreciate it. I just wanted to clarify that there is a lot of there's not a lot of work to be done, but this work that has to be done is a longer-term process than that. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I could, Mr. Andrews, I'd just like to go back to the question Mrs. Winslow asked you about the civil service test being put out there.
Yes.
And I know that that it is out there, and that's Plan B in the
That
event
is Plan
that
B.
we cannot come to an agreement with Chief Stanley. And how close are we to coming to an agreement with Chief Stanley?
I'd have to say very close.
And so the board will be hearing something from you at some point soon on that.
You are correct, Madam Chair. And also, there's a Plan C with respect to an assessment center concept that has been taking shape throughout the chiefs of police and the associations in terms of how assessments can be done internal to the town going forward, and we are also evaluating that procedure as well. And I might also just make one note, if I could, just on that last point. On, I believe it's the 12th of January in the morning, we will be in the town of Hopkinton receiving certificate. 13th, excuse me, thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. On the 13th, we will be receiving certification, which is the base level foundation to move to full accreditation of our police department. Less than 24 police departments have accreditation in the Commonwealth of Mass, and I believe it's 9:30 on the 13th at Hopkinton Police Department, and I intend to head on up there and participate in any way that I can. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I'm sorry that I won't be able to make it on the 13th. I would love to be there to.
It's a Thursday morning.
Would love to be there to be able to watch our chief of police and our police department be rewarded for the great effort that they've made towards attaining certification. It is an accomplishment, and I am confident that we will go on and make it to accreditation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. That completes the town administrator's report. The next order of business is for the board to vote on the town meeting dates for spring annual town meeting. Hardly seems possible that we're talking about spring annual town meeting already, but it is today, Tuesday, January 4th. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. Make a motion for town meeting be April 25th, 2011.
I believe you may have to read. No, we need to publicly declare all of the dates that are referenced with regard to the annual spring town meeting. Excuse me, Mr. Holmes, I'm sorry. We need to reference all the dates on the sheet, and then we'll take a vote on setting the date as the next order of business.
Okay, Madam Chair. April 5th, 2011, elections. April 25th, 2011, general business. Tuesday, January 4th, today, Board of Selectmen should establish all dates for completion of warrant of the annual town meeting. Friday, February 18, 2011, last day to post in at least one public place in each precinct notice of intention of Board of Selectmen to call the annual town meeting for April 25th, 2011. Bylaw Division 1, Article 1, Section 3. 10 days notice by posting in precincts before warrant closes. Friday, March 11, 2011, last day to submit petition articles to be inserted in the warrant, 45 days before town meeting. Tuesday, March 15, 2011, Board of Selectmen shall officially close the warrant. Friday, March 18, 2011, last day to post in each precinct and deliver a copy of the warrant to the town moderator and to the chairman of each committee established by Section 2-5 of the Wareham Housing Home Rule Charter within 3 days of closing of the warrant. Tuesday, March 22nd, 2011, last day to submit to the Finance Committee articles included in the warrant, no later than 35 days before town meeting convenes. Tuesday, April 5th, commencement of annual town meeting election day, first Tuesday of April. Thursday, April 7, 2011, last day to publish entire warrant in local newspaper, 14 days before the town meeting. Monday, April 25, 2011, general business portion of annual town meeting, fourth Monday of April.
Is there a motion?
Motion so made.
Is there a second?
It's my birthday.
Same day as Ernest Precourt, who'll be 100 years old on April 5th.
Oh, cool.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cruz, did you say so moved?
Yes.
moved.
he did.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may
Yes,
I just
please.
ask one question? Mr. Andrews, do you anticipate or that there'd be any reason for us to have a special town meeting? I know that in the spring that they usually will have we usually call dates for a special town meeting in the spring that would resolve any of the year-end things, and it gives us a little bit time to get it closer.
Yes, Madam
than
Chair.
these.
In fact, we're putting that list together
Excellent.
as we speak. It wouldn't have to be a special day. It could be a special meeting before the annual
Well,
town
that's
meeting.
I would say I know that last year we didn't do it, and that was your first year here. But normally, what they do is that we will call the dates for a special town meeting. It'll be the same exact time, same time
That's
and everything, and then the moderator will open the town meeting and then open the special town meeting within the town meeting. But just so that you'll have that opportunity, especially with all of the budgetary issues coming in and
Yes.
everything, so that you may need to make adjustments. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that may be a possibility. And if you're working on the dates now,
It's
that's
a very
great.
good point, Madam Chair, and there are some housekeeping matters that we will need to attend to at that meeting, at that
Thank
special
you.
meeting. Thank you.
Okay. And now we'll have the notice of the 2011 annual Springtown meeting.
Madam Chair, the date is incorrect in the notice. It should be the 5th, right?
Yes.
It says the 4th.
Yes, we have a typo in the paperwork in front of us. Let's,
Name of Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in accordance with provisions of Division 1, Article 1, Section 3 of the bylaws of the town of Wareham. Amended, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town of Wareham that an annual town meeting has been called by the Board of Selectmen to be held 8 a.m. on Tuesday, April 5th, 2011, for the election of officers, and to be adjourned until 7 p.m. on Monday, April 25th, 2011, at which time the general business of the town meeting shall be transacted. The last day of submission of articles for insertion in the warrant is 5 p.m. Friday, March 11, 2011. The warrant of this meeting will close on Tuesday, March 15, 2011. And you are hereby directed to serve this notice by posting the test copies thereof in at least one public place in each precinct within the town on or before Friday, February 18, 2011. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this posting with your doings thereon to the town clerk, given under our hands at Wareham this 4th day of January in the year 2011. So moved.
Second.
moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. April town meeting will be on April 1st, 2011. April elections will be on April 5th, 2011. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the Westfield Senior Affordable Housing and the RFP and all of those things that go with it. We have not had a discussion regarding the Article 84 that was passed at town meeting. I thought that we needed to get this on the agenda and get things rolling. The way the article was passed and moved at town meeting, it appears as though the Board of Selectmen will be the appointing authority for the Westfield Review and Recommendation Committee, as stated in Article 84. There was some discussion between myself and the other appointing authority members about this because there was a little confusion apparently. But upon review of the DVD and the certified vote at town meeting, it was determined that the other folks on the appointing authority came to a consensus that it was not the appointing authority, but the Board of Selectmen, as ruled by Town Council as well. You have a question, Mrs. Ekstrom?
I'm sorry, do you mean the appointing authority, like for the Finance Committee? Are those the members that you're talking about that you spoke with? Because I know like the appointing authority, it depends on what's being appointed as to who the appointing authority is. So
Yes,
I'm a little
it was the appointing authority of the Finance Committee, and the reason that came about was because there was a sidebar discussion as to who the appointing authority might be, but it was not included that way in the article on town meeting floor. It was certified as the appointing authority. So we went back to get a clarification from Town Council, and Town Council said that the town appointing authority referred to in the article had to be the Board of Selectmen because of the way the charter is set up, and that unless it's otherwise specifically specified, any multiple member committee must be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Now the Board of Selectmen could choose to delegate that to an appointing authority made up of the moderator, the town administrator, and another member of the appointing authority, but I'm not sure that that's really in order. We would be somewhat abdicating our responsibility. Does anybody have any comments on
Madam
that?
Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Do you have the final wording of the article?
We have the certified copy that was sent to the Attorney General's office. That's what we have so far. And based on the certified copy from our town clerk's office, that's the ruling that Town Council made.
But it hasn't been certified by the AG's office as of yet because we're not
That's
into
correct.
that 90
And we
days.
will not make any appointments until we have the response from the Attorney General that the article was in fact approved by them. I'm not anticipating any issue with the Attorney General's office. It's a pretty standard type of article, town meeting article, so, and that should be back to us fairly soon. But in, also along those lines, we have already received, I believe, 9 appointment applications, requests to be appointed to that Review and Recommendation Committee, and just want to make sure that it's publicly known that this was voted at town meeting and that there will be appointments made to that committee. So
But we haven't really received any.
well, this board has not received any.
They
Correct,
came
because
in
of
and
the
they went to the appointing
They went
authority.
to the chairman of the appointing authority.
Well, I
So-
think that was what the question, one of the questions is.
Who made the decision to?
As I said, I think it was a misunderstanding, and all of the appointment applications will be forwarded to every member of the board. And they should have been already as of today. I don't know what happened with them if you didn't get them today.
I haven't seen them yet.
You will get them. You will
And would
get
it be
them.
okay, could you, through maybe Mr. Andrews or through the office, get us a copy of the final version of that article?
I have a copy of it here available this evening if anybody would like to look at it, and everybody can have. As a matter of fact, I think I may have forwarded everybody on the board a copy of it in email, but
Or did I miss it?
it's possible. It's possible that you missed it. It's possible that I thought I sent it to you. But I do have it here. Any other questions, concerns?
My only concern, Madam Chair, is I actually believed that the appointing authority that we were discussing at town meeting was the other appointing authority.
But there is no other appointing authority, because the appointing authority is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the moderator, and whichever other committee that is being appointed to. So the Finance Committee chair appoints to the Finance Committee. The planning board, so what other member, there's nothing that specified it
Well, and the town administrator is also the appointing authority in certain,
in certain instances. But
like
this
if
is
there's
a
hearing,
multiple,
it's in front of the
right.
appointing authority, which is you.
But we're talking about a multiple member committee
It's
as
3
specified
I
in
would
the
say,
charter.
If I may, Madam Chair, this is, I believe it's 3-2 in the charter. And this is, if people may recall, to jog people's memories, there was an issue a few years ago with the library trustees, that they were appointed by this appointing authority that had just kind of morphed out of itself at some point in the 80s. And it had come across that the Board of Selectmen was supposed to be the appointing authority. And that is where council had come up with that decision back then.
Excuse me, Mr. Holmes, is the, I thought I had the ruling from town council attached there.
3-2C.
No, it's just 2 pages.
The amendment to the article was that the duly appointed RFP committee as per the town's appointing authority. It did not specify, there is no town's appointing authority other than the Board of Selectmen for multiple members of boards and commissions, unless it's specifically stated in the charter, which would be, again, the Finance Committee, Planning, Capital Planning, Planning Board. There's one more, I'm missing one. Finance, thank you. The most obvious one. Sorry.
That one, right.
Sorry, Mrs. Bronk. Finance. So, that was, the DVD was reviewed. There was no mention made at town meeting about anybody else being specifically given appointing authority. And, so that's where it stands.
There was in April. The difference, Madam Chair, I think the difference is in April, I believe it was Mr. Russell who made that motion, identified who was to be on the appointing authority for the Westfield Housing Study Group.
That's
correct?
A very good example.
And then, but in November,
They didn't.
they didn't. They just made the motion that said Wareham, the town. You have
Town's
the
appointing
language,
authority.
the town appointing authority.
Correct.
I honestly thought it was the other appointing authority with you and the town moderator and the chairman of the finance committee myself. But I do see where there is I went back and looked at Mr. Russell's motion. There is a big difference in the way those motions were made. And if you follow that through to the charter, it would show that this board would be the appointing authority for a multi-member board.
But we can delegate that back to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the chairman of the Finance Committee, and the town moderator.
Well, I'm not in favor of delegating it to anyone. If it's our responsibility, it's our responsibility. If the town meeting so voted to have that group do the appointing, then they would have done it like they did in April, I think.
Well, I think if both you and I thought it was the other appointing authority, there were probably a number of other people at town meeting that also may have been under that belief.
Which is exactly why we're having this discussion
Right.
this evening, so that everybody can be put on notice that there is a clarification and that there was no discussion at town meeting specifically about this. So where they got that impression is
Because when I hear
interesting.
appointing authority, I automatically think of that
Right.
that group. That's what I think about. But when you read the language,
I mean, we don't want to get wrapped up in
we can't get into a
process
discussion.
issues.
The 3 members of the other appointing authority are in the room, and they should not be allowed to in this conversation. Because I would, unless you call them a special meeting right now, and it would violate the open meeting law.
That is a very good point, Mr. Holmes, which I should be thinking of.
But I did call the clerk's office this morning to try to find out what the status was on the certification, and they said that the warrant should probably be like the first part of February, the first week of February she expects to have. That would be the 90 days to have our articles certified. by the AG's office. So I did find that out this morning.
But I guess Madam Chair, just because on that same note, the Attorney General, I thought, I mean, this isn't a bylaw, and this isn't a charter. I mean, this isn't. So I don't understand why we have to wait for the certification of because they're not going to they're not going to look at it. I mean, it's not a bylaw, so they're not looking at it to make sure that it doesn't conflict with state law, because that's all the Attorney General's office does, is to ensure it doesn't conflict with state law. So I guess I'm at a loss as to why we're waiting, or why.
I kind of had that same question myself.
We don't have to wait.
But the town clerk has to certify, correct?
The town clerk is already certified.
It's
That's what this
certified.
is. She certifies it before she sends it forward.
She has 30
A true
days
copy
or
attest, 165 affirmative, 32 negative. She has the motions, the amendments.
But that's really only town-related, town business.
Right. So I don't think that it's very unlikely that there would be any issue at the Attorney General's office on this, and there is probably, as Mrs. Exum said, no reason to wait. But if the board would like to wait, then we can wait. If the board doesn't want to wait, then we don't have to wait.
Well, I think, we put out the call tonight, and I guess it's under any other town. But I mean, we could do it here because it says Westfield discussion. We could certainly invite folks to submit applications if they're interested in serving on the Westfield Affordable Housing Committee.
It's actually
and
the
then
review
give that
and
a few weeks to take effect and bring it up in
and just
for
so
our
people,
appointments,
right.
because we got next week, the week off after is no meeting,
The 18th.
right?
Right.
And then, so we would do the appointing maybe the third Tuesday in February, right? That'll give people 4 or 5 weeks to get their applications in.
Well, and once again, though, I mean, here we go. 9 people have their applications in, and 9 people had a passion for this after town meeting.
But you have to ask. You have to let people know that.
Right. Well,
we're letting them
let me
know,
just.
That's what we're doing.
How about a compromise,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Cruz?
According to what we voted on last year, since last year was only a
Last
couple
year,
days,
very good, Walter.
and Mr. Holmes was in charge of that committee, I thought we had a policy that we were going to advertise any openings for committees that were going to be appointed by us. And if we haven't advertised yet, those 9 people are mute and not.
We're going to advertise?
We were going to advertise or let them, just like we're doing right now. We have an opening.
Let people know.
Let people know, and there was a time limit for how long the notice was going to be before we appointed.
Yeah.
And it's just like we brought up earlier, we made a law, and we're going against it.
Well, the
So the
policy.
9 people is just like bring back. Those are people that knew about Westfield. Probably, more than likely, 90%. So at least now you're getting everybody out there to take action and say, hey, we need you. Come on and give us a hand.
And as a follow-up to that, Madam Chair, we have not defined the committee, and so I think that between now and then, this Westfield discussion should probably take place at every meeting. We should have this on the agenda between now and then. Decide how that committee is going to be made up, if we have any preference or any qualifications to be on that committee. This is a blank committee.
And I think that's part of Mr. Cruz's issue that I would respond to, in that the policy that we set up was specific to the boards and committees that are already set. If you have a committee that is created by town meeting, that's not necessarily the same as the rest of the committees and boards that we in fact point to on a regular basis. And I think that giving people a reasonable notification to get an application in is definitely a good idea. I don't see that we necessarily have to wait until the third week in February to appoint the people, but I also don't see any problem with waiting until the third week in February if that's what the board chooses. But I do think that this is I don't want to say an exception to the rule, but it's not the normal board and committee appointing process that we have set up in the past. I also just want to make a comment on your statement regarding setting parameters and restrictions on who may or may not, or who, I think during the normal process of appointing people that we can determine, well, this person might be good because they're an engineer, or this person might be good because they're very knowledgeable of senior affordable housing issues, or this person might be good because they're good with recreations. But to set those parameters up beforehand, I think is restrictive and not in keeping with the intention of town meeting, because there was no such parameters set in the article. I think we would be possibly overstepping the bounds of what the article said, which is we'll appoint 7 people.
Does it actually,
excuse me.
I don't know that it actually said 7 in there, did it?
I believe it did say 7. The amendment was suggested as a friendly amendment by the moderator for 7, for a number, to put in a number of 7 people.
But I don't think that those have to be at-large people, because one of my concerns would be that there's obviously going to be a town investment, and that's taxpayer dollars. So I think that I'd like to see somebody from the Finance Committee sitting on that committee.
Well, first of all, the Finance Committee is not allowed by charter to sit on any other committee unless they're specifically designated by charter or by town meeting vote. So that's problematic. Now, the Finance Committee chair and I had this same discussion, and we determined that anybody, they can designate a liaison as an ad hoc member, but they wouldn't necessarily be a voting member. And remember, this is an advisory committee that we're appointing, because we are the ones who are ultimately going to put the RFP out. So they're going to be coming to us and advising. If the Finance Committee would like input, then they're more than welcome to send somebody. If the Planning Board wants to send somebody, if the Recreation, Fields and Grounds Committee wants to send somebody, or if any of the other, like, for example, the Recreations and Fields Committee, they don't have a restriction on being on other boards and committees. They could have one of their members apply. As a matter of fact, I think one of their members is interested in applying, but I'm not sure the application is in. I'm just saying that it's like any other open committee meeting. Whenever this committee meets, the public is welcome to attend. And that includes members of interested members of other boards and commissions who would like to attend and have some input.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may make a motion that we begin the process of forming the Westfield Senior Affordable Housing by inviting folks tonight to apply if interested. And since this is a new board, that we make our appointment selections or begin the interview process on Tuesday, February 1st.
Mr. Holmes, would you consider clarifying your motion by saying that this is not the Westfield Study Committee? This is the Request for Proposal Review and Recommendation Committee. So people understand what they're coming to talk about. They're coming to look at the RFP and all those words. You want all those words?
You want me to change that?
Please, thank you. Because I think I don't want to give people the wrong impression about what this committee is. This committee is a review to review and recommend with regard to the request for proposal for the project at Westfield in accordance and in conformance and in compliance with the town meeting article that was voted at the fall town meeting, Article 84.
I'll second Mr. Holmes's motion as amended.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I think that if we will be doing this on February 1st, that I would like to have, if we could have Mr. Andrews get a copy or get copies of the original RFP for not only this board, but for anyone who's appointed, so that RFPs aren't always the quickest read, so that when they're appointed, we will have them available so that they can have them, so when they start their meetings, they can hit the ground running on them.
Thank you. I think that makes perfect sense, Mrs. Ekstrom, and I did have this discussion with several people earlier, and that suggestions were made that this committee might have to spend money, or I think that hopefully we've spent all the money that we need to spend on this. We have an RFP template that can be adapted to the requirements of the newly passed article, And we also have a town planner on board who is also, it is expected that he will be involved. I know that Mr. Andrews has him looking at that template already, and the last time we did this, we didn't have a town planner, so we will make use of the resources that we have available to the town in this planning process, and hopefully we'll come up with a product that we can get an RFP out and see what comes back, and then we'll just take it from there. You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
The RFP itself, oh, by the way, I'm sorry, Mr. Cruz, it's pretty long. The template was pretty long. I believe there were 75 pages in the RFP that discussed the management of the project after it was completed, the senior affordable project. We'll be adding the recreational piece on. We'll be adding a number of things that were not there before. So, yes,
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Cruz.
can we have a copy of this put in our files?
Yes, you may. Not a problem.
Yep.
And I'd also like to request that we put the information up on our website so that people
Right, and it's out.
know.
The RFP from before is still on our website, I believe.
know that we're looking for the volunteers to the committee, because sometimes people hear things, they don't watch the meeting. It's not always necessarily.
I think Mr. Holmes has that under control as part of his liaison volunteer.
I see some of the local newspapers here tonight. It would be nice to have that inserted in. Yeah, look around. And we'll also deal with that on Friday. We'll ask our other volunteers. Maybe some are interested.
I believe
I
Mr.
think now that
Holmes-
we've opened the process, that's
Right.
the big piece, so that people are aware that the process is now beginning, and hopefully we'll get many volunteers.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Would you like to just, while we're talking about volunteers, we're moving into the discussion of the volunteer appreciation party. Would you like to take it from there and then maybe add in your plug for
Yes,
additional
Madam Chair.
volunteers?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The invites have been sent out. There was a little delay at the end of last week because people were out of the office, but the invitations have been confirmed for the save the date email January the 7th, which is this Friday evening, here in the Multi-Service Center. Dinner is at 6 p.m. It will consist of pasta, sauce, meatballs, salad, dessert, coffee, garlic bread, and maybe some nice water. We will be reconning the kitchen facilities in the morning following our sewer meeting. But at this point, all looks well. We have invited the other members of the other appointing authorities as well, the town moderator, the chairman of the finance committee. I also thought, and please don't throw eggs at me, I also thought that since it is a new year, I also invited, we sent out the invitations today to our other volunteer board in town, the school committee, as they serve as volunteers as well as elected officials, but they don't get paid. And I thought that would be a good gesture to start the new year out. And if they'll come and break some bread with us, that would be fine. But they are obviously invited. There was, I'll just go into a small bit of history. We had attempted to do this off-site, but due to state ethics violation laws, we had to do it here. I don't typically like to throw a dry party, but there is an invitation to those volunteers who come. Bay Point actually has a Friday evening dance. And this Friday is no different. And they're going to have this DJ at Bay Point, and what they've said is that they won't charge a cover until after 9. So if you'd like to come and enjoy some pasta, and then maybe go enjoy a beverage and some dancing.
Right, and there are many other establishments in
And
town
there are-
that
and
that
there
have
are many
parties
other-
on Friday nights as
Right.
well.
There
so,
are many other establishments in
let's-
town, so that we
let's
don't
just leave
violate
it
any
at that.
laws.
Right. Well,
But
thank
there
you.
is no cover, and bring
Why
your
didn't-
dancing shoes. And
Why didn't you
Thank
just
you.
apply to us for a one-day liquor license?
I thought about that, but
I know.
no. So that's where we're at. I think we're up to 25 or 30 already responses Hopefully,
Good.
people will get back to Janet before Friday.
Good. We had a very nice time last
I'm
year.
sorry?
And
I'm sorry, I would say, are you doing this by yourself?
No.
Okay,
Oh, no.
this-
No, I have my chief cook and bottle washer right here.
and I'm on the
Mr.
cleanup
Cruz.
crew.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Mrs. Winslow is going to
Make the
handle the desserts.
Do you need
And
my coffee?
Mrs. Donahue has, she's working with me on the heating sources and the panalas.
Oh,
For those who are not Portuguese, that means pots. And you are helping me in another capacity to be determined.
Well, I would say, first of all, if you need the sterno and those things, I have them.
Right.
That, from the past week. And do you need my coffee pot? I have like a 30-cup capacity. I know I mentioned.
Yeah, we were going to recon in the morning just to double check and see what's down
Okay.
there.
Well, let's
know.
take the discussion
Right.
of the details.
Okay, just making sure, Steve.
Now, Madam Chair, is it okay that I email the board with an update, or would that be
Yes.
considered
No. No, that's information.
deliberations?
It's called informational purposes.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will email the board members, and we've also invited Mr. Andrews. I know he. Well, the big reason we invited him is because he volunteered to split the cost 6 ways instead of 5. So I thought that was a good door opener for him to get in, because after all, he's not a volunteer. He gets paid, and paid very well. So he's going to split the cost with us.
He spends a lot of time with the volunteers, though, so that's a nice thing.
And he was volunteering on the snowplows the other day, right? So, yeah, there you go.
I think we have
Okay.
pictures of that.
Very
Scary.
good. So hopefully the weather will work with us and not against us, although we wouldn't be the
There
first
are
time we've
reports
had
of
the volunteer appreciation party during a snowstorm, and we still got good attendance.
There are reports of snow for Friday, but hopefully
Later.
not until late in the evening.
Later in the evening.
And if it becomes a storm, we'll just move it to next Friday, and we'll feed the pasta to the plow drivers. Right.
I think there were cots in the multi-service center, so, yeah.
Yeah. And Mr. Andrews can send the plows out as soon as he sees or even smells snow. We're good. We're good. We're all set.
Okay, great. Moving right along from that light topic, just a quick rehash on the 2012 budget. I think we had some questions on it the last time we met, and I just wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to bring any further concerns that they had. Quickly, I'd just like to emphasize that the 2012 budget, again, was delivered on time. It's a plan. We all know that there are contingencies that are liable to come up. A plan is something that is subject to change, and we know that we've got issues that are subject to change. And the Finance Committee has it. I'm sure they'll be making their recommendations on where they might like to see some things different, and we all have the opportunity to continue the discussion with as a board and with Mr. Andrews. So
Sure.
I just put it on there in case anybody had anything they wanted to bring up tonight.
Well, Madam Chair, I started going through the budget and making a little bit of a list, but as you can tell, I've come down with another sinus issue. So I haven't quite finished, but I would like the opportunity maybe next week to go through my list of questions.
Okay, I think might be helpful if you shared them
Prior. Yes.
so that people can be prepared,
Yes.
especially Mr. Andrews, since
You
he
can
does
email
work for
them,
us.
or whenever, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
you can send them to me.
I think we could ask him the questions ahead of time. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
Sure.
I'll be at Children's tomorrow, so I'll have time to work on that.
Great.
So.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the discussion regarding Class 2 licenses. Mr. Holmes, you brought this up last week. I know that you've got some
Thank you, Madam Chair.
comments.
I passed out a packet to the board. Mr. Andrews, you have a copy as well. And basically, the first part of that is the cover sheet, the policy statement. It's Selectmen's Policy 04-02. I brought the Selectmen's book if anybody needs to look at the old one. And basically on the cover page, I just altered the dates to today and put the new list of board members. In my recommendation, as I discussed a little bit last week, is that I'm trying to increase the number of Class 2 licenses in the town of Wareham from 15 to 20. The second grouping shows you and highlighted in green. These are some Class 2 license rules and regulations for the town of Wareham. I believe I did include the old one and the new one. So these were from 1986, July 8th of 1986. And basically I've changed, if you look to the newer version, it's all highlighted in green. Basically, the first change was that, it's hereby ordered that the following rules and regulations be adopted on today, January 4, 2011. It was just a date change. The second change I'm recommending is in Section 3, where it says that the Board of Selectmen shall determine the suitability of the proposed locations for a Class 2 license business. And I've added the following language, following a formal review by the Inspectional Services Department. I'd like to I know that we currently get a recommendation typically from the police department, but I'd like to have our Inspectional Services Department actually go on site, look at the plan, make sure that everything is in compliance with the town bylaws before the application comes to the Board of Selectmen, so we would expect that the Director of Inspectional Services would sign off on that as well. Under Section 9, in this bylaw from 1986, the number of Class 2 licenses outstanding in the town of Wareham will be limited to, I've changed that to 20. The old bylaw said it was actually 25. So there was a change I'm recommending in Section 9. In Section 11, this section relates to an applicant who leases property from someone else. And it reads, any applicant leasing proposed premises must furnish a written approval from the property owner to conduct a Class 2 business on said premises. That's the old bylaw. I've added, recommended added, when leasing, this is actually the same old piece. When leasing premises, if the license, this is added on the second page, I'm sorry. When leasing premises, if the license is revoked for any reason, it cannot be transferred to the owner of the property. The owner may apply for a new Class 2 license subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen. I've added that statement in there. I recall about a year or so ago someone came in and that came up, but I couldn't find that anywhere in the language, and I just wanted to make that very clear. So if there's any reason that license gets revoked, the license comes back to the town, and if the owner wants to reapply for that license, then they're subject to all the other bylaws that are contained within the policy and regulations. And then at the bottom, obviously, I changed the Board of Selectmen, updated it to the current board. And at the bottom, under rules and regulations adopted by the Board of Selectmen, I put in today's date. Madam Chair, one of the reasons that I reviewed this policy is because recently we had a gentleman come in and apply for a Class 2 license. I've received at least 2 or 3 other genuine interests from business owners who would like to open and allow and get a Class 2 license to sell used cars in the town of Wareham. Our bylaws are very strict in that the property has to be maintained, there has to be a plan, it cannot be unsightly for neighbors, but more importantly is our current economy. With 5 additional licenses, we would estimate a general input into the local economy of close to $2 million. Each car lot or used car sales lot, at a minimum, needs to have revenue over $150,000 just to maintain the property and the leasing and the vehicles. But added on to that are folks like Sullivan Tire, Midas Muffler, Meineke, Auto Palace, Auto Parts, car washes. I know recently when I bought a used car in town, the gentleman had a contract with another mechanic. That mechanic was very busy, so we would increase our employment, salespeople's jobs, mechanic jobs, detailing jobs. The gentleman also had an agreement with the Sunoco station up on, I'm giving some plugs here for local businesses, but that's okay, up on Route 6 at the fork there, where when you bought the car, you went to that Sunoco station and you had a certificate for your sticker, and I think depending on what you paid for the price of the car, they gave you a tank full of gas as well. And so these lots, or car sales lots, are really important today. People can't afford brand new cars. People can't afford to go buy used cars from dealerships because the prices in those dealerships are pretty high. And you know, every car that's sold, you know, typically requires about $300 to $500 of investment. And that investment's made right here in our community, in the parts stores, in the mechanic shops, etc. And so I think it's important. I think that we've protected ourselves in these bylaws so that a used car lot isn't a nasty word, but we've protected the town to make sure that these locations and business locations have strict rules to keep the places clean, neat, orderly, no damaged cars, no junk cars on the property, and that if there's any disruption in the neighborhood, we can deal with that at that time. So, Madam Chair, I think that this is a good thing for the town, and I would hope that the Board of Selectmen would support this policy change. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Winslow, go ahead, please.
Just a couple of, we're going to discuss this now, I'm assuming, because it says discussion on the agenda. A couple of observations and concerns. We're a small community, and I'm not sure that adding 5 additional used car lots to a community of 24,000 people is going to generate the kind of income that we would hope that it would for the town. I did some extensive research on my own on this, and these types of businesses don't necessarily create the types of jobs that Mr. Holmes is looking to create, although I think we all believe that they sound like they go hand in hand. There can be a lot of issues on these types of lots. From time to time, there have been problems, and the practices of some of these businesses could be termed almost predatory towards the citizens of our good community, many who face very difficult economic times today. And we all see the signs when we drive by, 0% down, everybody financed, and those types of practices can be detrimental to some of our citizens. But aside from those observations, my concern with increasing the number of available Class 2 licenses is that there's a number of other licenses that we've limited, underground storage type things, the whole issue of putting tanks under the ground. And if we go ahead and make a change to this policy, are we going to open ourselves up to having everybody coming before us looking to change the other policies? And are we opening ourselves up to any potential issues in that regard would be my big concern. And don't get me wrong, because I think when Mr. Holmes first mentioned this, I really thought that this is, you know, he's on the right track, creating, you know, additional revenue and things like that. I'm just not sure that this is necessarily the way to go. And but more than that, I would want to be absolutely certain that we weren't doing something that was going to have unintended adverse effects on some of the other policies, and that's all. Yeah.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. Going back on the original policy we had, it did limit it to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had reduced it to 15.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not taking anything away from what was originally done. In fact, we're adding just 5 more, because they had originally had 25 in the beginning. Now, I don't know, it was, 86? I think it was 86 that they did this, so...
Yeah, 86, it was 25.
I think if we just alleviate the number 9, leave it like it was at 25, and just limit it to 20, I think it'll be fine. Because there are other viable places in town that are all set up. Because we did have 2 businesses that closed down since I've been on the board. One is over there by Benny's, and the other one's in West Wareham.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other people that have viable places that's ready to open up, like Mr. Holmes had mentioned. And I think if we don't have the 15 already, I think 20 would be good. And the only thing I would recommend is to leave the number 9 as it was. Because the last paragraph, or the last sentence does say we have the right to amend from time to time any of the foregoing rules. So we're covered right there.
Yep.
I think that's number 15, the last.
Yep.
Mrs. Exton?
Well, I agree with Ms. Winslow insofar as that, and Mr. Holmes kind of alluded to it when he said that, you know, used cars doesn't have to be a bad word, or it can have a positive connotation if we allow for this. And I agree with that, but I was on the board, and I know what Ms. Winslow's talking about as far as that there are, or there can be, some predatory schemes out there of some not so on the level businesses of any kind. But used car seems to get the bum rap. I think that could probably be addressed by requiring, I don't know, a $50,000 or $100,000 surety, so that if we had that, if people remember that there was one that they were taking people's cars in on consignment, and then they were selling the car on consignment, keeping say sell it for $10,000, keep the $10,000, but not give the person that was holding the title the $10,000, so that they couldn't register the car because they didn't have a title, and the people who were holding the title never got the money. So, and we did not have any ability to help them except for closing the business down. So, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't do that anyway, but if something like that happened again, if we had some type of a surety in place that, you know, that could, you know, and I don't even know if that's possible to use a surety for that, but if there is something like that, I think that I would be very much in favor of adding something like that, and it may help to satisfy the concerns that both Ms. Winslow and I both have with that.
Madam Chair, through you to the members, Mr. Cruz just handed me Chapter 140 of the Section 58 of licenses, where it says that the person shall obtain, this is the state law, shall obtain, the state law, Mr. Cruz, the person shall obtain a bond or equivalent proof of financial responsibility and continue in effect a surety bond or equivalent proof of financial responsibility satisfactory to the municipal licensing authority in the amount of $25,000 executed by a surety company authorized by the insurance department to transact business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The bond or its equivalent shall be for the benefit of a person who purchases a vehicle from a Class II licensee and who suffers loss on account of. So that it is part of the state reg.
Right, which is
Chapter
not
140.
currently not part of,
Right,
not part of our policy.
and I know that we do have, I mean, that we do that, but this particular person, the $25,000 didn't make a dent in what they did, so.
I think I recall who you're talking about up on
I'm
Route
not
6.
saying who will wear, because I
You're
don't remember and I'll make a mistake, but I do remember the situation. But, I mean, and I don't know if we could ask for a higher surety, you know, again, as our bylaws, policies, and things like that can be, you know, can require a higher level of things. I don't know if it can on that, but if we could check that out, that might help with it. And I also, I don't know, Section 10, where it says a Class II license must be exercised at all times or surrendered to the Board of Selectmen. That is one thing that I know that a couple of years ago, there was somebody who wanted a license or something, and they went through the town. Do you remember that? And they went through the town to find out who had the licenses and if they had businesses and this. And one of the things that was found out was that the people that had gotten the licenses, and I'm, you know, not criticizing anyone, but maybe they got the license 20 years ago, and they've had it, and they don't really do a big business, but they have it in case there's a car that comes along or whatever. I was wondering if do we want to identify what saying it this way, the exorcism of the license, the exercising of the license, what that would entail? Does it mean that they have to have business hours of a used car lot? Do they have to sell so many? I mean, because you can't really say you have to sell so many, because that would kind of put a damper on it. But that something that they have to have regular business hours, that they have to have something that would show that they are really a used car business and not someone holding this license for when they need it or want it. Because we do have a few of those in town.
Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Answering your question, Brenda, I think the state did come up with a update, and they did specify that some people work from the houses, but they specified the conditions. So I think that would, by going by the general rules and regulations. The only problem I have is talking about being unsightly. Nowhere in here does it specify the amount of used cars. I'll bring back one we had last meeting. He had only 3 spaces, but nowhere did we limit it to 3. And on his application, he did have a plan, and he showed 3 spaces. Nowhere on here, because someone may have the space like on a towing. They say you have to have enough for 10.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Cruz. Section 7 says motor vehicles for sale on the licensed premises must be limited to the number of vehicles approved by the Board of Selectmen.
So what we need to do is specify.
So we are approving a number on the application.
We should be.
We should be.
We should.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, actually that is one of the things that, and I think we've only done 1 so far, but I think we did state 3. But if you look at the older licenses, that there's, just like on a liquor license, where there are the conditions, you know, glasses off the table at 1:15, you know, everyone out of the place by 1 o'clock or something. It's the same thing that it will say, that the lines have to be painted, it has to be clearly identified, there has to be a limit to no more than 3, 5, 10,
Based
30.
on the plan, the parking.
Based on the size of the property and the plan that they propose to us. And I know that we have in the past, when they've had them, and we've said, well, wait a minute, you can't even back these ones out without hitting those ones. So they have, you know, that they have removed some of those spots.
If I could make a suggestion to the board, I think there are a couple of issues that have been brought up that are relevant to this policy, and prior to setting a policy and voting on it this evening, I'd like to suggest that first we request that we be provided with a list of the current holders of the Class 2 licenses, where they're located, and the date that their license was given to them. Also the number of vehicles that, if it's shown on their license, they're allowed to have.
What was the, I didn't hear that.
How
Was
ma-
the
how many
current
vehicles?
list of license
Current
holders?
list of license holders,
Dates?
the dates
they were issued?
and the number of vehicles that they're authorized to sell on their property.
But I do think I was saying, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I also think that we should look at having the language that you've proposed specifically address the surety issue, because I think that it is addressed in a general way, that under Section 13, where it says they're supposed to be familiar with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 140, and satisfied, familiar with, but it doesn't say that they've complied with the rules and regulations with the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts pertaining to Class 2 licenses and operation thereof. It doesn't necessarily specify the information about the surety, which I think we could add that in.
So we would require a
Right.
certificate.
Once we have
of
the...
surety, is that what they call it?
Yes.
Surety
As
of
part of
all.
their application. And then
Certificate of
last...
surety with application. Sorry, I'm
Mm,
writing this down
that's
as
okay.
you're speaking. With application.
It will be on the DVD.
Right.
And lastly, just a comment. I think that once we have the list in front of us, we determine who's actively operating and who's not necessarily actively operating, as Mrs. Ekstrom suggested, then we might have a better idea on, we may even be revoking some licenses that are out there because they're just not being used properly. And then we would have a better idea of whether or not we need to increase the number of licenses from 15 to 20. I understand Mr. Cruz's discussion point that it used to be 25, then it went down to 15, let's just bring it back up to 20. And I think that that's valid to a certain extent, but I also think that we are trying to, as I said earlier, enhance the ambiance of the town, and that was part of the reason, in my understanding, is that was part of the reason why they were trying to reduce the number of licenses in the first place, was because there was a used car lot on every corner. And there are some empty used car lots still on every corner. So if there are that many people out there who are, looking for licenses, there's certainly space available, and we haven't seen anybody in here looking for licenses. This gentleman was the first person that we've seen in
Well,
a
one of
long
the
time.
reasons people don't come in, Madam Chair, is because they're unavailable. That's the
Well,
word. And we gave out the 15th one the other day. So if
Well,
you're
I've
trying
been
to
sitting
fill,
on
if
this
you're trying to
from
fill
my-
those storefronts,
Well, for
and
the
you have a
last-
limit on licenses, then you can't fill
And-
those storefronts.
And being someone who has a relative that was looking at getting a used car license here, that there were none available a few years ago. I do see your point, but I think that, when I said that about some may be not using, I think Mrs. Donahue's point, Chairman
Of getting
Donahue's
an
point is
inventory.
excellent, that if there are some that are essentially using it as a pocket license, if you will, or whatever, that it only comes out when it needs to be, or maybe if they're selling the property to say, hey, and I have a license, that type of thing. I think we need to look at that. But if I was going to interrupt, or I was in the middle of interrupting you, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate the work that you've done, and I do agree in principle with you. Having, my husband is in the automotive industry, so I do know that when Mr. Holmes was saying that, that whether it's Napa or Advanced Auto and stuff, all of those places do benefit when you have these type of places, especially, I think you were talking about one of the dealerships that they said, you go down and here's your coupon and you can get your sticker there and your first oil change or something. And so it does encourage business, and it might not be, when you say, oh, it's $2 million, people say, no, because it is, but it's $20 at a time, and that does add up.
It does add up.
So I think it is definitely something at, looking at all of those little things. I think it's a great idea, but I would like to just see that myself. But
And the last suggestion that I would make to the board and to the listening public is that perhaps there are people out there who have some input or feedback to the board on this issue. It's your community. If you'd like to see more licenses out there or not see more licenses out there, feedback would be welcome. So please feel free to contact any member of the board with your thoughts on this issue, and as we continue to hash out the policy, which I think is a very healthy discussion. And again, I concur with Selectman Ekstrom. You did a good first cut at this, Steve, and have given some good justification for the potential for increasing the number of licenses. I think Mrs. Winslow has expressed some valid concerns, and I think that, again, maybe it is do a little bit more. We can do a little bit more looking into this by getting the information on where we actually stand at the moment, and come back and discuss this again.
One last question, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Is there any recommendation from the board on the Section 10? Must be exercised at all times. I mean, somebody could take a week off, maybe 2 weeks, but typically they would have somebody, a salesperson, filling in or running the place while they were absent. I mean, I don't think it needs to be as strict as a liquor. We do the liquor once, right? And you're open from 8 to 10. And
well, as a matter of fact,
if I go by at 5 minutes to 10 and the lights are off, I get upset.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know that with that restrictive with a Class 2 license. I mean, I'm thinking maybe if we put 30 days on it, does that seem reasonable, or is that?
What I was saying is that I was even saying almost like set hours. Of course, you can close, for inclement weather, or if some businesses do close the business and give everyone the 2 weeks off or something.
Right.
I just mean that we can show that it's being exercised instead of that, I've got this license and I'll use it when I need it.
So if we requested hours
like
of operation to be included in the application, would that do it?
I think that
you
would
think?
be.
Well, I think that the one of the things that I've noticed about a couple of them is that they're not always open.
I was just going to say the same thing.
And I think that we, as a board, need to really enforce the fact that these are businesses like every other business. If you go to CVS at 10 o'clock in the morning and find the door locked and no one there, that's what's going on. I mean, they need to have regular hours of operation. I mean, there's a lot of businesses in town that put a little sign up on their door that say we're going to be closed from Christmas to New Year's, or we're taking off for Kwanzaa or Hanukkah. That's all well and good. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is driving by over and over and over again, and there's no activity on these lots, and then one day you drive by and somebody's son or daughter got the driver's license, and all of a sudden there's somebody there selling a car. I mean, if there are people that are really willing to run a professional, upstanding business that's going to really be good for the community, then those are the folks that need to hold those licenses, not people who, I got a few cars sitting in my backyard, I got the license, I'll sell it to you if you want it. Which is why I think you made an excellent suggestion, Chairman Donahue, that we get, and Mrs. Ekstrom, we get a list of who has these licenses and who's actually in business.
Okay, great. So let's agree to put it on the agenda again when we have the information, possibly in a week or two, and we'll continue this discussion. I asked for input from the general public. I'd also like to hear from the people who are holding the licenses. Tell us what you think. Probably. No monopolies. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is any other town business. Mr. Holmes, I'll start with you tonight because I know you have any other town business.
Yes. In the spirit of volunteering, we have many opportunities in the town of Wareham. The selectmen we're looking for citizens interested in serving on several boards and commissions. We have some openings on the Bike Path Committee, an associate member of the Board of Health, Commission on Disability, an associate member on Conservation, an associate member on the Community Preservation Committee, the Historic District Commission, the Minot Forest Committee, Open Space Committee, Pay As You Throw Subcommittee, Wareham Cultural Council, Wareham Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. any resident interested in serving will be considered for an appointment. You can fill out your application. They're available in the Selectman's office in Town Hall, and those applications should be returned to the office. And we appreciate your willingness to serve, and we look forward to having you work as part of our team of volunteers here in the town of Wareham. There's also a link on the website where you can get the application there, or you could even fax it into the office. So we hope that we have a limited number of openings, so let's make a mad rush to the Selectman's office or to the website and get those applications filled out. Thank you very much. One other piece under town business.
Thank you. Excuse me,
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Holmes. It's a little distracting. There's a discussion going on in the back of the room. Could we have a quiet, please? In the back of the room, could we have a quiet, please? Thank you.
Just real quick, Mr. Andrews brought up in his report, I probably should have asked him about it then, but I believe that the computer update begins sometime in the middle of February or March time frame. Is that correct, Mr. Andrews?
That is the planning period time, you're correct.
Right. There was some discussion yesterday about the existing computers, hard drives, and monitors that are going to be replaced by the thin clients. And one of the areas in town that really needs some help is in our Council on Aging. And so I'd like to recommend that maybe Mr. Andrews consider, instead of salvaging these or junking these computers, that they're much more up to date to those in the Council on Aging. And also we have some special needs issues in our community. And if there's an opportunity to use some of these computers, obviously with clean hard drives, etc., before salvaging them, that maybe some of the folks with special needs in our community could take advantage of them as well. So I just want to bring that up, not for a discussion or a vote, just to bring it up so that we're not in violation of any rules. But hopefully Mr. Andrews will report back to us at a date in the future when he's ongoing with that project.
Happy to, Madam Chair, through you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Cruz.
Yes, Madam Chair. A few months ago it was brought up about all businesses need a business license. I was wondering if we could have Mr. Andrews run that down, get a list of all the people who have business licenses now, and if they don't, because I've known we sign a lot of businesses here in town, and I don't know if they're just checking for what we've signed or for the business license. So I think if we run that down, there will be probably a lot out there that doesn't even know, because I had a business and I didn't even know about that license.
Happy to, Madam Chair.
I have one, too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Ekstrom. Oh, Mrs. Winslow. Okay, I'll keep going in a row. Sorry.
You know, the only thing, and I should have brought this up under Mr. Andrews' report, but this afternoon some type of press release or something had been issued about the assistant to the selectman, and maybe Mr. Andrews can just clarify for the public. There wasn't a lot of information available. I did get a couple emails and about a dozen phone calls. What is the status of that position?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was not a press release. There was a ending of a contract, which I have been keeping the board updated individually and collectively. And Mr. Sanjanet now is an independent contractor to the water treatment pollution control facility, as I have indicated to the board, and he has begun that work today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's also my understanding, Mr. Andrews, am I not incorrect, that you will be posting a vacancy for the board's administrative assistant, that position will be reverting to a truly salaried and paid as administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen?
You're correct, Madam Chair, and what I've done is at this morning staff meeting indicated to staff that whatever is needed on the Board of Selectmen side, that I would quarterback that part, and that staff would have stepped up to the plate to be able to meet all of our individual needs going forward. And I will have a job description for the board to review and to comment and to have input and insight. I think those are the proper terms, so that we can go forward and put together the proper description that you would want to see put out to the general public.
That would be done prior to the posting, I assume.
That's correct, yes. We'll get your... yes, you do.
Thank you.
That was the only thing I had. I just thought that it would be a good thing for us to just clarify. There were a number of media clips on it, and people were a little bit confused. So I assumed you'd done a press release, but...
And to take that even further, the email I got from the office, he's not an employee, Mr. Sanjanet is not an employee of the town any longer. He's a consultant.
That's correct.
And this is a short-term agreement, 90 days or less, to help Mr. Campina with those items that were listed under addendum A and B.
That's
Is that correct? Thank you.
Thank you.
Which actually, this works out well. That
This is extra.
I'll
Segue
just
into
rearrange.
you.
I would say it was segue in. I'm going to work my way up now. I want to take this opportunity to thank John Sanjanet.
Stole my thunder.
I was going. I'm sorry.
All right. It's okay.
John stepped in. I hope I don't get emotional, but John stepped in at a very, very trying time for this town. He held it together. He held this town together when there were attacks coming from all people. Even so much as when he went and sat in the town administrator's seat, there were employees saying, how dare he go sit there so soon after they got rid of the last one. I mean, it was just insane, the things that he had to go through. And it was also on a personal level very difficult for him because the person who we got rid of had been a dear friend of his for 10 or 12 years. So absolutely. And I don't know if this town could ever say thank you enough to him for what he did. And I think that he listened to this board. He started looking, addressing the issues. He is the one that helped us find Biz, who I think is doing a remarkable job. He's the one who found Chief Stanley for us, who's doing a remarkable job. And so I personally would like to thank him immensely. And I can just say that I hope every sewer user is very grateful that he has agreed to stay on with us for a few more months to help us try to straighten out one more area of town. We are the luckier for that. So thank you very much, John. Okay. Now, my other thing, I gotta start, I'll get emotional. Recently, I know that we had a Christmas tree that was donated to the town.
That will be on next week's agenda.
Okay, and I was going to say, and that I also understand that we had another one, so both of those will be...
Right, there are 2 donations that need to be officially accepted by the town. The town's very grateful for them, and we thank the people who made the donations very much. But we do have to officially accept those donations, and they will be on.
And I think there's a couple of other things, so if we can just, these ones are the ones that I know about. I would say, but with the we. There was a comment saying, oh, and this was donated, and this was also donated. We just need to get that so we have these things on.
It's a good opportunity to remind everybody on every board and commission that anything that is gifted to the town needs to be formally accepted by the Board of Selectmen. So if you have anything that was given to you as a gift, please let us know so that we can follow the rules and so we can thank people accordingly and for their generosity.
Thank you. And then, and this is just for us as liaisons, even though this is not liaison report time, but for us as liaisons and for anyone who has a board, committee, or commission out there that has subcommittees, and they pick 2 or 3 people on the committee to be a subcommittee. Under the open meeting law, the new open meeting law, those subcommittee meetings are to be posted. and with what is going to be discussed or anticipated to be discussed, just like we have, an agenda is to be posted. I have, we won't even go to the bus thing, but subcommittee meetings for that, like for example, that one, the school bus committee, transportation subcommittee, those were properly posted, agendas were created, Mr. Fonsis, the chairman, had those put out properly. I can tell you that there are other subcommittees in town, and I won't say which ones, but that are not posted, that people do not know what's going on, and all of a sudden, you know, Mrs. Winslow and I will show up here and say, oh yeah, we as the XYZ subcommittee decided we're going to do this, this, and this, and it takes not only the entire board by storm because no one even knows what we were working on, but everyone in the audience. So these things under the law, and anyone who's on a subcommittee that's not doing it, you are violating the open meeting law with every one of these meetings. So please be aware of it and make corrections. And my final thing is a question. The Community Development Block Grant. Usually we have CETA come in. It's usually in February. I know it was pushed forward this year to December. But usually we have CETA come in. They present what is going to be on the grant. We authorize the chairman to sign it. And we get copies of it. And I believe that that the grant's been completed. It was completed on time, which I guess was probably a couple weeks ago. It had to be in by. But I was just wondering if we're planning on having anyone come in here, or if we know of if CETA is coming in here to present what they've already put in the block grant. Ian, did they ask the chairman or to sign it or anything so that, I mean, because we're supposed to vote to authorize her to sign it. So I just didn't know if. Did we? Okay. I would say, which is fine. I just don't remember. I wasn't
Madam
here
Chair,
one night.
happy to bring Peter back in to give you an update, but I believe we took that business up at a prior meeting.
So you have a copy of the grant? I mean, because we didn't get, we don't have one.
Okay.
We can get copies.
We'll get you a copy.
I mean,
You don't want a copy? No. Okay. I'll put a copy on file in the board's office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're two big ones, two ways, but
Okay.
I'm good.
I remember it's in their meeting, but it was at the, I think, Madam Chair, you were there. Mr. Andrews, you were there, but it was across the street. I don't remember that coming here. Maybe
No.
maybe was
I can double check it.
No, I think it was
No, I don't.
before
They
the
didn't come here.
consultant came. It was right at the end of Chris Riley, and we voted
They
on
didn't
the
have
grant.
No,
they
they
didn't
wouldn't.
have the public hearing on the new grant.
Right. This is the
till
2011.
well after
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
Riley
Andrews,
was
can you double check on that,
I will
please?
double
Thank
check
you.
that, Madam Chair.
I could have sworn that we went through the whole thing with the numbers, and maybe it was the consultant. It was at the end of Mr. Riley and the beginning of the consultant. Sometime in that frame, we looked at the numbers from the old grant and the proposed new grant, and Mrs. Connaughton was here. I know we did this.
Well, like I said, Mr. Andrews, can you double check it?
Public hearing, but I don't remember that here, because that would have been after.
Madam Chair,
Right,
I'll
it would have been after the public hearing. That's what I'm talking about.
I'll check with Mr. Sanborn in the morning and advise the board accordingly.
Okay, although, I looked back through the agendas because for some reason I'm thinking that it was on an agenda and I don't know why. I'm thinking
It was.
And
It was.
could have been,
But
I
after.
was out.
was after the discussion that you're talking to and after the public hearing.
That's fine.
Okay.
Anything else, Mrs. Ekstrom?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And just under any other business, it's really a sewer business, but we're going to, so we'll move to sewer business. We're going to defer the meeting with Mr. Campina on all of the overall sewer issues for another week or so. He's still gathering some information and requested some additional time. I think most of you saw the email that he sent out enumerating the issues that he wanted for the board to address, the sewer commissioners to address, and that he needed some additional time to get clarification on some things before he came to meet with us again. The other thing on the sewer, I just wanted to, the letters for the betterments for the Parkwood Beach process went out, and I just wanted to clarify for people who have asked me questions about them and anybody who may have asked you questions about them. If you wish to pay your betterment in full, you must do so by Friday, January 28th. Even though the letter says January 29th, which is a Saturday, if you come in and pay your bill on February 1st, which is Monday, on January 31st, which is Monday, you will pay interest on 2 days. So if you're going to pay it in full, you pay it this month. For those of us who will be taking the 20-year option, you will not be receiving a bill for quite some time. So in case you were confused by the bill, it did not specify when your 20 years of payments would begin. It will more than likely not start until next January. So I just wanted to clarify that for the folks who were confused by their bills. There's also some additional information coming out on how you can obtain $1,500 per year credit up to $6,000 at the state level, because these systems have been required by the state. Under normal circumstances, your septic system would require a failure in order for you would have to specifically have a letter from the Board of Health stating that your system failed, and that's why you had to put in a new system in order to get this tax credit. But because these areas have been mandated by the DEP, there is the opportunity perhaps for you to apply for these, and we want to get that information out to you, and then you can talk to your tax accountant and determine whether or not it works for you.
Madam Chair, can I just
Yes.
suggest that we put together some type of press release with all that information, especially that January 28th date?
Mr. Andrews, will you take that for action with the assessor's office and the...
Madam Chair, already underway. I know Member
Thank
Ekstrom
you.
mentioned this at the last meeting. In my hand, I have the Title V credit, state-mandated sewer connections, and the code for Massachusetts regulations, which will be enclosed in a letter to each and every resident so that they could clearly see, and they need to talk with their tax accountant to see how they would qualify going forward. We can't be involved in that business, but we can advise them of the regulations that pertain to this program, and that letter has been drafted and is ready to be sent out over the next week. So we'll be. I'll do a press release too if you like.
Yeah, I'm not looking to spend postage. I mean, if you're going to do that with that, that's fine. But I'm thinking just a general, because I do think that Chairman Donahue makes a point that is really confusing when you have a Saturday due date, because in most instances, the following Monday becomes the due date.
Problem, right.
So that's going to be a problem for people, because they're going to think they have those extra 2 days, and I think we really need to make that clear to folks.
Would it be worth our while to have someone come in and work on that Saturday?
I'm happy to open up town hall if that helps, and but by the
Right.
same token, we can.
Right. We did meet with the collector, and his opinion was that people who are going to pay their betterment up front will not wait until January 28th to do it. They'll just come right in with their money, because it doesn't matter to them, whether they pay it on January 12th or January 28th. They're not like waiting.
It depends on when their money month.
Well, they might forget it, right?
If it's the 25th of the month, they're going to wait till the 25th to get that interest.
But then again, you're right. They may not have it might take them 30 days to get to their money or whatever.
I work in a bank, believe me, I know when those people come in. No, we'll wait till tomorrow,
Right. In any event, so just for clarification, I thought it should be discussed, and there are enough questions out there that I appreciate that. Mr. Andrews and I did meet with the collector yesterday and hashed some of this out, so I appreciate that the press release is moving forward quickly, and we are working to get the rest of this information out to the folks whose property has been bettered.
And Madam Chair, if I may, speaking of betterments and taxes, and all of that stuff for the sewers, I know we brought this up before, and the Weeannick area, if I remember correctly, originally it was 5.9% interest, and we went to town meeting in 2007, and we got it lowered to a 5% interest. And then something happened, it didn't go through the legislature. I thought we had to bring it back again, which we did at town meeting, or so I thought, and that they were supposed to be being lowered to 5%. And if you talk to anyone over there, that is, they're all waiting for this to be reduced. And I guess the taxes just went out again,
Well,
and
let's,
people are looking again. You know, and 5.95%, you know, it's not a huge difference when you know, conceptually, you know, it's a $100 difference, you know, especially in those first couple of years.
well, let's have Mr. Andrews take a look into
Yeah,
that
if
too
we
and
can
see what
find
the
out,
status is.
why it, you know, if it hasn't, why it hasn't, and if, you know, is this something we're gonna have to go back again to Springtown meeting and have it backpedaled, because especially where everyone else is the rates is so low, I mean, compared to what they're paying, and, you know, I know that it's an unfair system, but we do wanna try to be as fair as possible in that unfair system.
Well, you know, and Madam Chair, now that Mrs. Ekstrom brings that up, one of the things that I was thinking about, and I did take a look at some of the other contracts, is when we set these interest rates, it's almost arbitrary. Last week we set 0.5% above, but in some cases it can be up to 4% above, and there may be some actual legislation, and I have to talk to Mr. Foster about this because this just came to my attention today, that actually says we have to have it at least a percentage, quarter percentage or 0.5 percentage above or something like that. But wouldn't it make more sense, and I don't want to discuss it tonight, but maybe for a future agenda, if we had a policy on how much, that way people would know, instead of it being, well, we can have it this much higher, so that's the mood of the existing board. It just seems like it's disparate to, you know, some people could be paying, I mean, the folks over in Parkwood could essentially be paying a 6% interest rate. I mean, they're only paying the 2.5%, but then there's other people who aren't paying anything above, and it just seems like that's just making an unfair system even more unfair because it is arbitrary.
Well, if I may, I don't know the 4%. I know that the state law, if I remember correctly, is that you can put it up to 2% above the rate that you're getting, not to exceed 7%, I think it is, or, yeah, not to exceed 7%, or 5% or something. But that was because, you know, like when you had the SRF loans, which are 2%, so you get an SRF, well then the town was tacking on 2%. And that's where Wewianick ended up going up to the 5.9% because it wasn't an SRF loan, it was some other loan that was 3.9, and they were actually, as unfair as it is, they were actually being very fair because they were gouging every resident equally at the maximum 2% allowable by law. And they had done that right up through the Wewianick project. And then it was after that that Briarwood and Rose Point, I'm not sure what Rose Point is, but Briarwood, Beaver Dam came on, and they were the ones that said, you're tacking on this 2%, it's outrageous, blah, blah, blah. And in a reaction to that, they actually went to town meeting. We went to, because the town had never adopted the law that said you can charge above. And so we went to town meeting to get that, and a member of Briarwood, a resident of Briarwood, of Beaver Dam, got up and made the motion not to charge them anymore. And so that's how they got it at town meeting, to get a 0% on theirs. And that's why, because it was as part of that particular article. And so, unfortunately, for the people that have done it, we can't go back, and that's why with Wewianick it was special legislation to go back and lower theirs, so that it would be at that 5% mark.
All I'm suggesting is that we, at some future date, have a conversation about maybe having a system that's a little bit more, you know, some people could be paying 2% above and
Well,
at 5.9.
whenever you're ready to have that conversation, just let me know and I'll put it on the agenda, okay? Mr. Holmes.
Madam Chair, 30 seconds, please. I just want to correct, under sewer business, some of the news reporting in town is claiming that the board/sewer commissioners have set the betterment for contract 2. And I just want to make those people that are under contract 2 aware that this board, or no other board of sewer commissioners, has set that betterment yet for contract 2. We took 2 votes One was to combine or not combine the contracts, and the second vote was on the betterment for contract 1. We have not voted on the contract, on the betterment for contract 2
You are correct.
as a board. But yet, in every newspaper it was reported what contracts 2 betterment would be, and that is not accurate information.
Well, perhaps we should ask for truth in reporting.
I
Because you
think
are correct.
every website or newspaper I picked up had the number, and it hasn't been voted on by the sewer commissioners.
Well, first of all, the contract hasn't been finalized, so we don't have the final numbers, so. And second of all, you're absolutely right. The vote was to set Parkwood Beach and to split the stimulus money, but there's no vote on contract 2 because we don't have the final numbers yet. So that would be good if we could get
And
a
the last comment I'll make,
correction.
Madam Chair, on the sewer business is that tomorrow morning is the update meeting at the trailer, and I'm sure that they will be buzzing our ears about contract 3. I just leave that floating.
No pun intended. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Whoops. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.
I was opposed. Well, I would say I just opened this.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Please bring your applications in on time, folks, in the future. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn now?
Motion to adjourn, yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I'm opposed.